Chapter 1773. For Yang Chun, this problem was not difficult. Linyang River had several spiritual veins of very immortal level, and he could build a mountain gate on any one of them. Anyway, Linyang River was the territory of Chunyang Palace, and he could do whatever he wanted. The head of the palace and a group of disciples were counting the losses of Chunyang Palace. On the ruins of Chunyang Palace, from time to time, there would be some indigenous outer disciples rummaging for something. Speaking of it, the real loss was not very big. All the treasures were in the space magic weapon of the elder in charge of management. What was placed outside was nothing more than some decorations. It was just that the mountain gate was destroyed, and it had not yet reached the point where Chunyang Palace suffered a serious injury. However, it was not the first time that the mountain gate of Chunyang Palace was destroyed. There was once an immortal world. At that time, there was an old tree demon. The old tree demon sacrificed a clone and saved all the disciples of Chunyang Palace. After the last mountain gate was destroyed, at least the head of the palace knew that the mountain gate of Taishaman was also blown up afterward. This was Yang Chen's revenge. They just didn't know how Yang Chen would deal with it this time. A gentleman's revenge. 10 years is not too late. The head of the palace only said such a sentence to Yang Chen. He was not afraid that Yang Chen would go out to retaliate, but he was still worried about the safety of Yang Chen. Therefore, he did not want Yang Chen to provoke a powerful enemy when he was still weak. This disciple understands. Yang Chen gave the head of the palace a reassuring answer. Looking at the worried eyes of the head of the palace, Yang Chen smiled and added, "It is not us who are angry now, but the 5 major sects." The latter sentence made the head of the palace feel a lot more at ease, and several other elders also began to nod. The 5 major sects had just announced that they were not allowed to make trouble for Chunyang Palace. However, the Zhao family immediately made such a move. If the news spread out, it would be a disgrace for Chunyang Palace. The 5 sects would definitely be extremely angry and find trouble with the Zhao family all over the world. Then, as the center of the storm, Chunyang Palace could use the excuse of rebuilding the mountain gate to avoid being involved in the center of this vortex. However, Yang Chen did not have the thought of letting the Zhao family off so easily. This great enmity of destroying the mountain gate could only be repaid in a more tragic way. If there was a master, it wouldn't be a problem to get back at him. The crux of the matter was that the whereabouts of the Zhao family members were uncertain, and no one knew where they were at all. This imperceptibly increased the difficulty by a lot. If one really wanted to calculate it carefully, the loss of the Zhao family was definitely countless times more than that of Chunyang Palace. Just 3 supreme mystic immortal experts and 2 heavenly immortal experts were enough to make the entire Zhao family burst into tears. How many resources and time would it take to accumulate 3 supreme mystic immortal experts? Compare with the loss of only property, and no one in Chunyang Palace died. It was simply like heaven and earth. Yang Chen did not intend to let the Zhao family off easily. He directly ordered several disciples of Chunyang Palace to send the corpses of the Zhao family's 5 earth immortals, 2 heavenly immortals, and 1 supreme mystic immortal expert to the Sunset Rock. He asked Elder Wu Xiong to spread the news and offer a reward of a piece of divine perching jade to track down the origin of these guys. The Zhao family was not a mouse that hid in the ground all year round. Cultivation always required experience in battles, so there were always traces to follow. Therefore, as long as they had appeared and walked outside, they would definitely be able to find clues about them. Following the clues, they might be able to find the Zhao family. Even if they couldn't find the core of the Zhao family, they could probably find 1 or 2 of those peripheral organizations. The reason why they didn't send the corpses of the 3 supreme mystic immortals was that they were afraid of exposing the true strength of Chunyang Palace and making the 5 major sects afraid. If 3 supreme mystic immortals failed to kill more than 100 human immortal disciples of Chunyang Palace, it would seem that Chunyang Palace was too shocking. Anyway, outsiders only knew that someone had attacked Chunyang Palace, but they didn't know the specific number. The 8 corpses handed over were enough to shock countless people, and it was enough to alert many people with bad intentions. There was no need to put themselves in the eye of the storm. The explanation to the outside world was naturally that the fairy-eating insect queen blocked most of the attacks, and then it happened that Lady Fanghua of Yin Demon School arrived with the Supreme Elder, and they worked together to defeat these experts. In this way, the pressure was shared by Yin Demon School, and Chunyang Palace would not seem so shocking. Of course, this would inevitably make people doubt the relationship between Lady Fanghua and Yang Chun, but compared to killing 3 supreme mystic immortals, it was much easier to explain. Lady Fanghua had cooperated with Yang Chun in the mortal world, and she could use the excuse that she was optimistic about Yang Chen's future. Moreover, Yin Demon School also participated in dividing the wealth of the Zhao family when they were in the mortal world. At this time, they couldn't stay out of it, and cooperation was the only way. Sure enough, as Yang Chen expected, as soon as the corpses of the 8 Zhao family masters were sent to Sunset Rock, it caused an uproar. The terrifying aura that came from the direction of Chunyang Palace a few days ago was not an illusion. There were really supreme mystic immortals who attacked Chunyang Palace. The disciple of Chunyang Palace who was responsible for sending the news and the corpses was very clever. Under his eloquent description, Chunyang Palace became a pitiful place that was bullied by others. All the disciples were injured, and none of them were intact. The mountain guarding formation was broken in the first place. If it weren't for the fairy-eating insect queen's desperate resistance, the whole sect would have been destroyed. Even so, most of the disciples of Chunyang Palace were captured. Fortunately, at the critical moment, the great elder of Yin Demon School, Lady Fanghua, and a supreme mystic immortal master came, which turned the situation around and successfully rescued the people of Chunyang Palace. For this reason, Yang Chun directly paid the price of dozens of 5 revolutions, questioning inner heart pills to reward the disciples of Yin Demon School who came this time. The hatred of the destruction of the mountain gate, Chunyang Palace must definitely be avenged, so it was reasonable to offer a sky-high reward for the origin of these attackers. No one thought that Chunyang Palace's move was inappropriate. The mountain gate had been destroyed. Couldn't they find out who did it? Chunyang Palace's position ended there, and they didn't say a word more. But everyone was very clear that the time when Chunyang Palace was attacked was just after the 5 major sects announced that they would not harass Chunyang Palace. It might not even be a few days before they were attacked so suddenly. The weak Chunyang Palace was just a small mountain gate established by a few little guys who had just ascended to the spiritual world for less than 200 years. In addition to using various elixirs and this time's divine perching jade to get a place to survive, it had no prestige. Even if the mountain gate was destroyed, it was not Chunyang Palace that lost face. They even killed the supreme mystic immortal master, didn't they? The real disgrace was the 5 major sects. Those attackers simply slapped the faces of the 5 major sects back and forth, and they were too ashamed to face others. Chapter 1774. It was a great humiliation. Just as the words were released, someone immediately did such a thing. It could be said that the guys who did it treated the words of the 5 major sects as farts. Just because you said not to move, Chunyang Palace should not move? Who do you think you are? This operation had completely and utterly revealed this intention. The faces of the 5 major sects were directly stripped to the point that nothing was left. Their whole faces were trampled into the mud and ruthlessly ravaged. If this could be tolerated, what could not? How many days had it been since the representatives of the 5 major sects left Chunyang Palace? They had just walked to the Sunset Rock, and things had already happened there. Yang Chen's wives and concubines left earlier than the disciples of Chunyang Palace, and they had iron-winged eagles to fly, so their speed was much faster. When the representatives of the sect had just left the Sunset Rock and had not yet returned to their respective Sheeping Mountain branch, they had already caught up with the representatives of their respective sect. The words of the women were the same as those of Chunyang Palace, and they consciously concealed it from the 2 Grand Supreme Mystic Immortals. In fact, even they themselves felt that it was incredible. When they thought that a Grand Supreme Mystic Immortal expert had died under the joint attack of their husband and themselves, they felt as if they were stepping on clouds. It was so light that it was extremely unreal. It could be imagined how furious the representatives of the 5 major sects were when they heard the news of the women. After the women were left behind to carefully inquire about the situation at that time, an urgent warning was sent directly from the Sheeping Mountain branch to their respective sect. Subsequently, the higher-ups of the 5 major sects were all in an uproar. It had been tens of thousands of years since anyone dared to declare war on the 5 major sects at the same time. Even if Yangchun and Chunyang Palace had killed Chimin's sect not long ago, it was only a matter of a disciple of the Xintian sect. It was still a far cry from declaring war on the Xintian sect. But now the Zhao family was simply shitting on the heads of the 5 major sects. Fight! There was no second word. It was only a fight to the death. In any case, they had already formed a deadly enmity in the mortal world, yet they still didn't give him any face in the spiritual realm. They absolutely wouldn't rest until they killed each other. Although Chunyang Palace announced the identity of those masters, it seemed that they didn't know. However, it was a different story from what the women said. Apart from the fact that the 3 supreme experts had become one, he basically didn't hide anything else. He didn't even hide the fact that the supreme experts had brought 2 zither to ask Yangchun about his secrets. Of course, the biggest secret of the zither was the dragon beard zither string and the dragon bone string pillar. As for the matter of sealing experts, none of the girls mentioned it. However, this was enough to let all the major sect know who their opponent was. Although the 5 great sect seemed to be peaceful and focused on expanding the Sheeping Mountain branch, they had secretly done a lot of investigations on the Zhao family. They didn't dare to say that they had completely caught the traces of the Zhao family, but it was an indisputable fact that each sect had found several peripheral organizations of the Zhao family. Originally, Chunyang Palace also used the god-perching jade as a reward for these people's sect. As a result, less than 2 days after the reward was released, under the persuasion of the people of the 5 great sect in turn, the huge reward was withdrawn. What a joke! They had slapped the faces of the 5 great sect in this way, and they still needed Chunyang Palace to pay for the lives of their opponents. What did they want to do with the 5 great sect? To everyone's surprise, although the people of the 5 great sect were furious, they didn't take action for a long time, which puzzled those who were waiting to see how the 5 great sect would get back at them. What was going on? Their opponents had taken advantage of them, and the 5 great sect had actually become cowards? No one knew what arrangements the people of the 5 great sect had made, but shortly after Lady Fanghua rushed back to the sect to report, Yinyang Demon School received an olive branch from the 5 great sect for cooperation. Similarly, the other Demon Gate sect and even the Monster Clan sect did the same. Everyone's goal was the same, which was the well-hidden Zhao family. Xintian sect took the lead and invited representatives of all the sect to secretly discuss certain matters. The people attending the meeting were asked to swear by the Heart Demon that they could not disclose the contents of the meeting to anyone except the core leaders of their respective sect. The contents of the meeting were very shocking. During the meeting, Xintian sect presented the facts and reasoning and even brought out Yanglan. A series of evidence and arguments were completely in accordance with what Yangchun had said in order to win the trust of the Xintian sect's higher-ups. They attributed the destruction of the mortal Taishaman to the Zhao family's conspiracy. There were many suspicious points that could be found after careful consideration. This time, Xintian sect could be considered to have accumulated a lot of information. They took out the results of their previous investigations and announced very generously that even if the destruction of the mortal Taishaman had something to do with all the sects present, Xintian sect would let bygones be bygones. Everyone would get along as they had in the past. The real culprit behind the scenes was the Zhao family, which was everyone's biggest problem. If it was not necessary, no one was willing to fight to the death with Xintian sect. Even the other sect, which had almost reached the same height as Xintian sect, had the same thought. The evidence that Xintian sect presented was simply shocking. 80% of people believed that Xintian sect would never speak carelessly. No one expected that Xintian sect, which had been silent for so many years, would investigate these matters so clearly. However, these things could be investigated. The experts who had participated in the destruction of the Taishaman had all ascended. As long as they verified each other, it was very clear whether what Xiantian's sect said was true or false. In this regard, there was really no need for the dignified Xiantian sect to lie. Since this was the case, then Xiantian's sect's words became credible. As a result, the hidden Zhao family suddenly became a big problem for everyone. Think about it. Even the mortal world's greatest heaven sect was designed to be destroyed. Wasn't this a terrible thing? If one day their own sect didn't investigate, they might repeat the same mistake. On one hand, Xiantian's sect had presented enough evidence. On the other hand, Xiantian's sect also intended to improve their relationship with the other sect. Not to mention that in the mortal world, everyone in the sect present was involved in the matter against the Zhao family, so it was impossible for them to escape. Soon, everyone was united against a common enemy. The Zhao family was now a big problem. Not to mention anything else, just the fact that they could casually send out a supreme mystic immortal and 2 heaven immortal experts was enough to make people fear them. Working together to deal with the Zhao family had become an opportunity for everyone to tacitly cooperate. What followed was a few months of peace and tranquility. It seemed calm, but under this calm, countless storms were hidden. The more time passed, the more people knew that it would definitely be earth-shattering. Chapter 1775. Chunyang Palace was not in a hurry, and Yangchun was not in a hurry either. During this time, Yangchun leisurely chose a place in Linyang River with a mountain and a river as the location of the new mountain gate of Chunyang Palace, and prepared to rebuild the mountain gate of Chunyang Palace here. Yangchun's wives and concubines, after reporting to the sect, all rushed back. At this time, they must return to Yangchun's side and advance and retreat with Yangchun. Of course, everyone had a share of the spirit pills, and all their life source primordial spirits were left in the Dragon Tower. On the contrary, Yangchun sent Shi Shanshan, Sun Qingxue, Tao Junqi, and Shi Wushuang out. Naturally, the place where they went was the place where the 4 masters were sealed, and the method of unlocking the seal was also told to the 4 women, so that they could unlock the seal as soon as possible. Only the 5 Murong sisters were left by Yang Chen's side. In this regard, Yang Chen was a little guilty, and he also explained the situation to the Murong sisters, waiting for compensation in the future. On the contrary, the Murong sisters did not care so much, and instead comforted their husband not to worry about it. The reconstruction of Chunyang Palace was naturally managed by the head of the palace and several elders, and there were disciples of Chunyang Palace running errands, so Yangchun did not have to worry much. What Yangchun had to do was to draw out the spiritual vein after the completion. So during this time, Yangchun was idle, and he cultivated with the 5 women in the Dragon Palace every day. Just when everyone wondered why the 5 major sects and Chunyang Palace were so calm, the sudden change made everyone stunned. Dao sect, Demon sect, Monster Clan, and several major sects of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. All the sect that participated in the Zhao family's feast in the mortal world all participated. Almost at the same time, they launched a devastating attack on hundreds of sect and families in the spiritual world. The operation was so sudden that no information was leaked. Only when all the results were out did the news slowly spread. Overnight, hundreds of sects of various sizes in the spirit realm were uprooted, and hundreds of clans were completely eradicated. Not a single person was left. More than 1,000 organizations were affected, and tens of thousands of cultivators were affected. The distribution of these organizations almost covered the entire spiritual realm. The territories of Dao sects, Devil sects, and Demon clan were all affected. Even the Sunset Rock belonging to Chunyang Palace was no exception. At least 3 merchants were affected. Every major sect had mobilized more than 100,000 experts to launch a surprise attack at the same time. They had all understood their targets beforehand, so it could be said that they were exceptionally well prepared. However, it was obvious that his opponents were not to be trifled with. In fact, many of them were already prepared. When the surprise attack took place, at least half of the opponents put up a fierce resistance, and about 40% of the forces showed their hidden trump cards. Instantly, various magic treasures flew about in the sky, and various types of attacks blotted out the sky. The auras of powerful cultivators filled every corner of the spirit plane, striking fear into the hearts of others. The auras that erupted out caused some low-level cultivators, who were thousands of li away, to tremble. Everyone understood that the five major sects had finally made their move. Sure enough, they were the five major sects. When they took action, it was earth-shattering and bloody. As soon as they took action, Yangchun immediately noticed the movement in Chunyang Palace. The Murong sisters accompanied Yangchun and looked at the soaring aura in the distance. No one spoke. Even brotherly Cheng was attracted by those movements and looked in that direction aimlessly. In fact, the new mountain gate of Chunyang Palace was still calm. No matter how good one's eyesight was, it was impossible to see thousands of miles away, and it was impossible for one's divine sense to explore beyond that distance. Everyone was just surprised by the movements in those directions, but they didn't really want to see anything. The fierce battle between all sides lasted for 2 months, almost without interruption. The price paid for this was beyond the imagination of an ordinary sect. People knew that the five major sects would definitely retaliate, but they didn't expect the scale of the retaliation to be so large. Countless unrelated cultivators watched in horror as the various large sects flipped out. No one dared to say a single word, afraid that they would be implicated and become one of the targets of the various large sections. People who understood could see that this was not only the five major sects' revenge, but also the sect's power. Even if they had to pay a heavy price for this, they had to let all the cultivators in the spiritual realm know that the words of the five major sects must not be underestimated, let alone ignored. The war lasted for 2 months, and finally came to an end after the last Grandmaster who resisted was beheaded. In this war that affected the entire spirit plane, over 60 to 70,000 cultivators were killed off by the various great sections. The number of cultivators who were accidentally implicated far exceeded that number. In fact, there were also a high number of innocent cultivators. Due to the fact that they were caught up in the war and incapable of escaping, those who were smart enough to help the various great sects kill off their enemies. As for those who were not smart enough, they were treated as enemies and unfortunately ended up as sacrificial lambs. In short, after this battle, more than 100,000 cultivators were killed by the sect in the spiritual realm. Hundreds of sects had been removed from the spiritual realm, and over 100 clans had been wiped out. Only the major sects were still standing, and they had used this battle to establish their awe-inspiring might. The sect's seemingly benevolent appearance or the facade of only being domineering in their own territories made many people forget what they were. They really thought that the sect could rise to the top by relying on its large number of people. They completely forgot that behind every sect was an Azura who stood up from a sea of blood. The ordinary cultivators were scared out of their wits by the sect's massacre this time. When they heard the sect's name, they couldn't help but tremble, afraid that they would accidentally offend the sect and be consigned to eternal damnation. This time they were really scared. Even when they saw the cultivators of the sect, the way they looked at them was different from the past. There was a kind of admiration in their eyes. The purpose of the major sects to establish their prestige was completely implemented. Before the attack on the Pure Yang Palace, which caused the five major sects to lose face, no one talked about it anymore. Everyone looked at the people of the major sects in awe and did not dare to have the slightest neglect, not to mention secretly ridiculing the five major sects for not living up to their name. What a big move! After receiving the news from the Wanbao Tower, Li Cheng also sighed. Then he returned to the front of the Dragon Tower and continued to study the connection of his sealed place. After making a comprehensive assessment of the sect's actions, Yangchun couldn't help but admire them. The sect was indeed a big sect. It really had a deep foundation. A few more people and a few more masters could not make a super sect. Chapter 1776. While all parties were in awe of the Taoist, devil, and monster sects, the sect was also counting the gains and losses of their own sect. As long as there was a war, there would be spoils of war, even in the world of cultivators. After destroying so many sects and beheading so many practitioners, the sect's harvest was also very rich. The wealth of some small sect was far beyond the expectations of the major sects. Many small sects quietly relied on one or a few resources to make a fortune. Before this, the major sect would never have thought that the small sect, which they usually looked down on, would be so surprising. There were several sects that were not even less surprised than the Pyongyang Palace. In any case, the wealth of Chunyang Palace was on the surface. Elixirs inhabiting spirit jades, territories, and so on. Outsiders knew that Chunyang Palace was rich, but that was all. Masters, magic treasures, cultivation methods, and so on. Chunyang Palace was still far from them. However, a remote sect that no one had paid attention to before actually had the wealth and foundation of a first-rate sect that was not inferior to it. This was something that no one could not help but be surprised. Many of them only discovered this after the fact. While they were happy to get a lot of spoils of war, the major sect also had a lot of worries. How did these sects develop under their noses? It was simply a joke. If it weren't for the masters of the Zhao family taking action this time, which allowed them to face this family hidden in the dark, they would not have had the chance to find out the involvement of these small sects, and they would not have found out that they had hidden so deeply. As for the Zhao family, the deepest hidden behind-the-scenes manipulator, this time, the major sect basically did not find the culprit. Perhaps, as Yang Qin's wives and concubines said, the location of the Zhao family was constantly moving. Maybe it was in a magic treasure of an immortal's cave, or maybe it was on the back of a big guy like an immortal world. No one knew. However, this also made the major sect more afraid. For such a well-hidden family, they had already found hundreds of external forces. Furthermore, they had only found clues from the few people who had taken action. It was believed that this was not all of the Zhao family's forces. At least 90% of them were still hidden in the dark, staring at the big sect like a tiger watching its prey, waiting for the opportunity to counterattack. In this war, while the major sect had gained a lot, they had also lost a lot. After a simple calculation, the number of experts from each sect who died in this war was as high as several thousand. Although this number was not unacceptable compared to the number of enemies killed, it should be known that there were dozens of supreme mystic immortals and hundreds of heavenly immortals among these thousands of people. Just this alone was enough to make the major sect's hearts ache. The 5 major sects were very glad that they had chosen the right way. Instead of rashly launching a war directly, they first endured and then united several major sects of the Dark Sect, the Demon Clan, and the Rogue Cultivators Alliance. Otherwise, if the 5 major sects attacked directly, the losses would definitely be more than this. Even so, on average, each sect had lost 2 to 3 supreme mystic immortals and more than 10 heavenly immortals. This was under the preemptive situation. The other party did not launch a counterattack immediately after the incident at the mountain gate of Chunyang Palace. If the Zhao family had taken the initiative to attack, the major sect could not imagine what the result would be. Although the disciples of the major sect were now in the limelight, the senior management of each sect was so scared that they broke out in a cold sweat. This kind of strength was only from the external forces. How terrifying should the real Zhao family be? How did this mysterious Zhao family develop under the nose of the major sect? Why hadn't there been any news about it before? While the senior management of the major sect was commenting on the gains and losses with cold sweat, in a mysterious place, someone from the Zhao family was also furious. "What have you done?" A person in charge shouted angrily at the 2 young men kneeling on the ground. "Who asked you to provoke the 5 major sect? Who asked you to touch Chunyang Palace? Damn it." As he spoke, he seemed to feel that he had not vented his anger enough. He stepped forward and kicked the 2 guys a few times. The 2 kneeling guys' heads had completely touched the ground. They knelt there motionlessly and didn't dare to dodge at all. Even if the person in charge kicked them, they didn't dare to cry out in pain. They didn't even use their spiritual power to protect themselves. They just maintained their kneeling position and didn't make a sound. The person in charge was still angry even after kicking him for a while. He walked to the side and sat down. He gulped down a few mouthfuls of tea. Only then did his agitated mood calm, down a little. However, when he glanced at the two guys who were kneeling on the ground, he could not help but feel angry. Our ancestors have been operating for no less than 10,000 years, and we only have such a little bit of accumulated power. All of it has been ruined by your stupid decision. As the person in charge spoke, he stretched out his hand and slammed the table next to him, directly smashing a fine 10,000-year-old agarwood table into pieces. According to the family rules, it is not too much to kill you. The two guys who were kneeling on the ground were already trembling uncontrollably. Because of their recklessness, the sect had lost almost one-third of its peripheral forces. Even if they were the direct descendants of the Zhao family, in the face of such a loss, they could not say anything if they were killed. My death is not to be regretted, but I don't understand. Even if I have provoked the 5 major Dao sect, I have not provoked the demon sect or the monster clan. Why did those guys also join in the crusade against my family this time? The young man who was kneeling on the ground finally said with a trembling voice, logically speaking, at most, Yin Yang Demon School is involved. I really don't understand the actions of the other sect. This matter needs to be investigated carefully. The young man's doubts were also the doubts of the person in charge. He also could not understand why all the major sect were targeting the Zhao family this time. He would have to investigate more in the future. However, the person in front of him was his most beloved grandson. Even if he had done something wrong, he really did not have the heart to kill him to uphold the family rules. There is news that it seems to be the Black Heaven sect. As for the specific reason, we will have to wait for more information. However, it is definitely related to the Black Heaven sect. If Yang Chen knew that the Black Heaven sect was placed on the main opposing side of the Zhao family so easily this time, who knew how happy he would be? Who knew that the reason Yang Chen wanted to sneak into the Black Heaven sect would become the reason why all the major sect would collectively target the Zhao family? Now, Yang Chen did not care about the follow-up because Big Brother Li Cheng seemed to have researched something. Chapter 1777. When Yang Chen saw the map of the huge square of the Dragon Palace, it had become completely different from before. Before, the two Dragon Palaces had two squares. One was the Water Vein map. The other was the Fire Vein map, each of which only cared about its own attribute. Now, the two squares have been merged into one square. The area has been doubled, but the two maps have also been merged into one map. The map after the merger of these two maps has almost included the entire spiritual world that Yang Chen knows, forming a very clear outline of the map. And there's been a very obvious change. The two maps are no longer a spiritual vein map, but a topographic map, and it is a complete topographic map of the spiritual world. The mountains and rivers of various places are clearly displayed on it. Of course, the most basic spiritual vein is still clearly marked. If this is the case, it is not enough to surprise Yang Chen. What shocked Yang Chen was that some spiritual veins that Yang Chen had never found or heard of were clearly shown on it. Obviously, this was not the credit of Yang Chen or Xiao Tian, but the work of Big Brother Li Cheng. Not to mention anything else, this alone is enough to save Yang Chen hundreds of years of exploring the spiritual world. It will bring almost infinite spiritual power. It must be known that the original sea map or the Fire Vein map could directly extract the spiritual power of the spiritual veins of various places. Marking the spiritual vein was only the basic function of the original spiritual vein map. Now the topographic map of the spiritual vein is the credit of Big Brother Li Cheng. Basically, Yang Chen doesn't have to go out to explore. As long as he confirms these topographic maps according to the impression in his memory, he can get detailed information about various places. The 9 locations that Yang Chen got from the ancient zither are now marked very clearly on this huge topographic map of the spiritual world, including the Gourd Valley, where the old insect was found, the demon domain of the old sea, and the desert of the earth dragon. In addition, the remaining 6 locations are all Yang Chen has not been to and are also marked on it. Above the topographic map, there is a suspended translucent plane. The 9 locations below and the attributes of the nearby spirit veins were also marked with different colors. Then, countless lines were connected on this surface. Looking at this scene, Even if Yang Chun used his toes to think, he would know that this was an extremely complicated array diagram. Even with Yang Chen's knowledge of array formations, he felt a little dizzy when he first saw this complicated array diagram. One must know that this was not as simple as setting up a small formation in a small area. The largest array formation that Yang Chun had encountered in his previous life was only the Heavenly Quartz Guardian Array. It had a radius of tens of thousands of miles, and that was already the limit. However, the distance between the two closest points among the 9 points in this formation was already more than several million kilometers. The 9 dots were scattered in 9 different directions, covering an area with a radius of tens of millions of kilometers. This was truly using the world as the formation plate to set up the formation. Not to mention the other effects of the formation, just the area covered by the formation was enough to show disdain for all heroes. Many experts who were known as array formations would directly die of shame in front of this formation. Even Yang Chun himself was stunned, and Yang Chun did not even dare to imagine how his wife, Gong Sun Ling, would react when she saw this formation. Of course, everything could only mean a few facts. Firstly, Li Cheng was far more familiar with the spiritual realm than Yang Chun was, as the complete topographic map of the spiritual realm in front of him was proof. Secondly, Li Cheng's research on array formations was definitely much deeper than Yang Chen's, as the formation that even Yang Chun could not understand was proof. Thirdly, Li Cheng's understanding of the spirit veins in the spiritual realm was far more than what Yang Chen knew in his previous life. The number of spirit veins on the topographic map was proof that there were almost 10 times more. Yang Chun would not have any thoughts of jealousy towards Li Cheng, and, of course, he would not have any thoughts of shame. Cultivation was about fate, and it was already extremely heaven-defying for Yang Chun to have the memories of his previous life. Therefore, it would not make Yang Chun sad that Li Cheng had more heaven-defying experiences than him. Now that Yang Chun and Li Cheng were sworn brothers, the stronger Li Cheng was, the happier Yang Chun would be. Look at this formation. Do you have any impression of it? Li Cheng stood on the edge of the huge square and stared at the suspended, translucent formation map. He had not even turned his head when Yang Chun came over, and instead asked directly, "How is that possible?" Yang Chun shook his head with a bitter smile. The formation map was still messy to Yang Chun, and he could not even sort out the veins. How could he have any impression of it? Then let's start with the simplest one. Li Chun was not surprised. Yang Chun would not pretend to understand in front of him, let alone pretend not to understand. However, the actual effect of this formation was so incredible that Li Cheng had to find someone to confirm his judgment, and the most suitable candidate was, of course, Yang Chun. Li Cheng waved his hand, and the lines on the translucent formation map disappeared, leaving only the most basic 9 locations. These are the 9 locations where the supreme powerhouses are sealed. Li Cheng's words were pure nonsense, and Yang Chun knew it without saying. However, Yang Chun did not say anything. He just stared at the translucent formation map and waited for Li Cheng's next move. Li Cheng seemed to wave his hand casually, and the 9 locations showed different colors. Li Cheng pointed at 3 of them and said, "These are the yin and yang attributes of Elder Chong, Elder Hai, and Earth Dragon." Then Li Cheng pointed at the remaining 6 and said, "I'm not sure about these 6, but it won't affect the analysis for the time being. We can confirm it at the end." The spirit meridians around each location, the terrain, and the 5 elements of yin and yang. As Li Cheng spoke, many bright spots appeared on the translucent formation map. It's based on the mutual promotion and restraint of yin and yang in various places. After Li Cheng said that, there were a lot of connections on the formation map. The greatest possibility of the 5 elements of yin and yang in the remaining 6 experts. Li Cheng introduced, and hundreds of different colors appeared on the formation map. After those things appeared, Li Cheng did not say anything else. He turned to look at Yang Chun and asked, "What have you seen so far?" "The 5 elements of yin and yang, but one is missing." Yang Chun stared at the formation map for a long time, then looked at the yin and yang attributes of the 6 experts that Li Cheng had analyzed and gave his judgment. "That's right. One of the 5 elements of yin and yang is missing. In your opinion, what is the missing one? Li Cheng did not look like he had everything under control at all. Instead, he asked in a questioning tone, besides, what is the most likely location? Chapter 1778. If Li Cheng were to discuss the problem of the array with Yang Chun, to be honest, Yang Chun was really not sure that he could talk. However, if it was the great yin-yang 5 elements, perhaps Li Cheng would not necessarily have Yang Chun's knowledge. He didn't dare to say anything else, but Yang Chun had both yin and yang 5 elements. The great yin-yang 5 elements secret art that he cultivated was all the original cultivation method. Even if he didn't follow the 5 elements theory, Yang Chun could simulate a most suitable yin-yang 5 elements array just by relying on the yin-yang 5 elements secret art in his body. In fact, this was what Li Cheng wanted to rely on Yang Chun. Although Li Cheng had inferred the possible yin-yang 5 elements attributes of the 6 seal masters, there were hundreds of permutations, and he needed Yang Chun to help him determine one of them. Big Brother Li Cheng's business was his own business. There was no need to say anything. Yang Chun waited for Li Cheng to finish asking and immediately released his spiritual power. First, according to the first arrangement selected by Li Cheng, he gathered his spiritual power at 9 points and began to operate. With one less spiritual power, Yang Chun could only choose where to put the remaining spiritual power. However, even if Yang Chun had put the last spiritual power in all places on the array diagram, the spiritual power of the entire system was still a bit sluggish. Obviously, this was not the best arrangement. Li Cheng was very happy to cross off one possibility and then waited for Yang Chun to experiment with the second arrangement. Yang Chun and Li Cheng cooperated very well. If it was in the ordinary way, Li Cheng wanted to completely confirm hundreds of permutations, and the brain power consumed would definitely make ordinary people die of excessive fatigue. Now that there was Yang Chun, a humanoid spiritual power testing machine, there was no need for Li Cheng to rack his brain. In fact, if he wanted to know the correct result, he only needed to wait for a few decades after Yang Chun's wives and concubines unsealed those masters. There was no need to waste his brain power like now. But obviously, Li Cheng didn't want to wait that long. Yang Chun wouldn't look into the reasons behind this. Anyway, Yang Chun would definitely support what Li Cheng wanted to do. Moreover, he didn't need to go through fire and water. He just needed to simulate the operation of spiritual power here. It was very simple. Yang Chun's standard of judgment was whether the spiritual power could operate normally according to the relationship between yin and yang and the 5 elements. According to this standard, in less than half a month, Yang Chun basically determined that there were 10 arrangements that could allow the spiritual power to operate normally. The next step was to estimate which type of spiritual power was left among these 10 combinations, and where was the most suitable position to place it. Choosing one of the 10 seemed to be a lot simpler, but Yang Chun and Li Cheng were a lot more cautious. Even for every possibility, Yang Chun had to experiment many times, and Li Cheng's thinking time was getting longer and longer. The last type of spiritual power was distributed outside the scope of the 9 points and was abandoned by Yang Chun and Li Cheng. There were still 3 possibilities left. The first possibility was that the 10 kinds of spiritual power formed a ring structure. Of course, it was just a structure formed by the spiritual power end to end, and it was not a real ring shape. The distribution of the 9 locations was not on a circle. The second possibility was that 2 ring structures were nested with each other. The positive and negative 5 elements each formed a ring, and the flow of spiritual power was also very smooth. The last one was more peculiar than the first 2. In the center of the 9 locations, there was a point that could form a smooth flow structure of spiritual power. However, this shape was very incompatible with the first 2, but it was the most likely one from the shape alone. The last location of the spiritual power, from the topographic map below, was a hidden valley. For the time being, there was nothing unusual about the difference. He had analyzed all the possibilities of the 10 combinations before. The remaining 3 combinations were analyzed one by one in Li Cheng's mind. After analyzing for a while, Li Cheng frowned and asked Yang Chun, "In your opinion, which one is the most likely?" While Li Cheng was analyzing, Yang Chun was not idle either. He was also analyzing the pros and cons. However, Yang Chun had an advantage that Li Cheng couldn't match. He had the memory of his previous life, so it was easy to determine the most suspicious place. The last one, Yang Chun replied almost without thinking. What? Li Cheng was very calm. With a wave of his hand, the array map became the possibility that Yang Chun said. He stared carefully at the points on it and asked, "Big brother, you are really kidding." Yang Chun smiled and pointed to the last point and asked, "Don't tell me you didn't find out what this place is?" A smile also appeared on Li Cheng's face. In fact, before this, he had already determined his judgment. Asking Yang Chun was just to add insurance to his judgment. The trial place of the major sect. Yang Chun added his own words, the place where the Tao, demon, and demon territories meet. There is a huge array to protect and block it. Is there anything more suspicious than this place? Don't you think it looks like a place? Li Cheng laughed and took a long breath. Even Yang Chun could feel that some kind of pressure on Li Cheng's body seemed to be swept away, and he was unspeakably carefree. Looks like a place. Yang Chun stared at the place for a long time and didn't see anything. But if Big Brother Li Cheng gave such a hint, there must be something strange in it. The formation that seals off the trial grounds, as well as the demonic beasts within the trial grounds. The smile on Li Cheng's face became more and more, and the content of the hint increased. Can it remind you of something? Demon continent? How could Yang Chun not understand such an obvious hint? But he couldn't believe what he heard at all. Although he said the name of the demon continent, there were more and more questions in his heart. In his previous life, Yang Chun had never entered the trial place. Everything was told by the cultivators of the immortal world, so he didn't know the real situation in the trial place. Li Cheng said that the trial place was very similar to the demon continent. Yang Chun believed that Li Cheng would not lie to him. Could it be that there was also demonic energy in the trial place? There is no demonic energy. It is exactly the same as the other monsters in the spiritual world, but I don't know where the source of the monsters is. Li Cheng saw Yang Chun's doubts and explained directly, "Think about it. The demon continent was arranged by the Zhao family, and the trial place, although he didn't know the history of the trial place, now that it was connected with the 9 Seal Masters, then the trial place was naturally connected with the Zhao family." Yang Chun now knew why Li Cheng was so sure. Not to mention anything else, just being able to connect it with the Zhao family was enough for Li Cheng to make a decision. Chapter 1779. What is the use of this formation? Yang Chun was now more and more curious about this formation. What do the people of the Zhao family want to do? It was actually related to the trial ground. There were many things that needed to be dug out. If it's really this arrangement, it seems that it should be a formation that uses the cultivation of 9 masters to erode the trial ground for many years, and then opens a space node. Li Cheng's face was very serious. This discovery was not unexpected to Li Cheng, but the content contained in it shocked Li Cheng a little. Yang Chun was equally shocked. Not to mention anything else, just this formation alone had existed for tens of thousands of years. The Zhao family had been planning this for so long. If the arrangement of the demon continent in the mortal world was counted, what the Zhao family wanted to do was really puzzling. With the strength of the Zhao family, they could even easily reach the level of super sect. Even if their strength was not as good as the Xintian sect, it was not much worse. However, such a terrifying and powerful family could actually endure for tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years without revealing the slightest clue. This could only be summed up in one word. The plan was very big. There was such a secret in the trial ground. As a result, Yang Chun originally just wanted to enter the trial ground to gain experience. Now, even if it was not for the experience, Yang Chun had to go in and see it. I have a feeling that if you unlock all the 9 Masters' seals, it will definitely affect the operation of this formation. Li Cheng waved his hand and put away the formation diagram. He turned to Yang Chun and smiled. Maybe you accidentally destroyed the arrangement of the Zhao family's ancestors and let their hundreds of thousands of years of waiting go to waste. Isn't that just right? Yang Chun also laughed. This was really a feeling of inadvertently planting a willow tree. Originally, Yang Chun only remembered that his friend had rescued a supreme master and wanted to find a helper, but now he accidentally destroyed the Zhao family's painstaking efforts. He didn't know how the Zhao family would vomit blood if they knew. Knowing some of the things arranged by the Zhao family, Li Cheng seemed to have become impatient and was about to leave immediately. Yang Chun knew his sworn brother's temperament, so he didn't force him to stay. He only reminded him to visit when he was free. When you comes back, you'd better marry Fairy Qingyin as soon as possible. It's good for both you and Chunyang Palace. Li Cheng was not so pretentious and left immediately. But before he left, he still reminded Yang Chun. This was the second time Li Cheng reminded Yang Chun since they met. Yang Chun nodded his head attentively and watched Li Cheng leave. The Murong sisters were at the side. When they heard Li Cheng say that he wanted Yang Chun to marry another woman, their hearts seemed to ache a little. But everyone knew big brother Li Cheng's position in Yang Chen's heart, so no one dared to say anything. The trial grounds had now become the first place that Yang Chun wanted to explore. However, before that, Yang Chun still had to do a few things. One was to wait for the female generals to unseal the 6 experts. Since he had accidentally destroyed the arrangement of the Zhao family, he had to wait until the results came out. Firstly, he wanted to see if the yin and yang attributes of the 6 experts were consistent with Big Brother Li Cheng's guess. Secondly, with a few more supreme mystic immortals around him, even if he went to the trial grounds, he would have enough security. Yang Chun never felt that he was invincible in the world, so Yang Chun had always been very concerned about his safety. This time, whether it was from killing the 3 supreme mystic immortals of the Zhao family or from the revenge of the major sect that caused heavy losses to the Zhao family, the Zhao family would definitely blame this on Yang Chun and Chunyang Palace. The trial grounds was a lawless place. Yang Chun did not rule out that the Zhao family would arrange experts to go in and kill Yang Chen's family. As for whether the Zhao family could enter the trial grounds under the control of the major sect, Yang Chun had never doubted this. Since this trial ground was made by the Zhao family, it would be strange if they did not have the ability to enter and exit at will. The second thing was what Li Cheng had told him, which was to marry the gentle sound fairy Zhou Xianying. However, Yang Chun must wait for Gao Yu and the others to come back before doing it. As for how to do it, it depended on Gao Yu's opinion. The third thing was to rebuild the Chunyang Palace. Although Yang Chun did not need to do the work now, it was almost time to draw out the immortal spiritual veins to appease the hearts of the palace master, the elders, and a group of disciples of Chunyang Palace. The last thing was the best to do. Yang Chun was now at the site of the new mountain gate of Chunyang Palace, and the mountain protection array of the new mountain gate had been completed. It needed the spiritual vein as a source of spiritual power. After greeting the master of the palace and several elders, Yang Chun began to arrange it. Many things had been prepared a long time ago, and now he just took them out of the Chinquan bag. In front of the palace master, several elders, and the Murong sisters, Yang Chun arranged a strange array. "What is this array?" Murong Yin asked curiously. The 5 sisters were also considered to be array cultivators, but they had never seen such a strange array. "It's just a small array to print the underground spiritual vein," Yang Chun explained. His hands did not stop, and after a while, the arrangement was completed. After reminding everyone to retreat, Yang Chun made a few signs in his hands, and all of them fell into the array. After a while, the array began to flicker. The ground covered by the array seemed to be in these flickers and began to slowly become transparent, slowly disappearing. A trace of spiritual power slowly seeped out from the bottom of the array, and it was obviously much stronger than the surrounding environment. Everyone began to look forward to it. As time went by, more and more spiritual power appeared under the array, as if the array itself was a powerful vacuum cleaner, attracting the spiritual power from below a little bit. More and more spiritual power gathered, and finally broke through all the soil cover under the array, and even the array itself could not bear it. In front of the spiritual power that constantly gushed out from below, it collapsed. A powerful and shocking spiritual power soared into the sky and directly rushed into the mountain guarding grand array. The mountain guarding array was stimulated by this spiritual power, and with a flash of light, the entire array was launched. In the sky, a translucent barrier flashed, and then disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Seeing this scene, the head of the palace and several elders were all smiling. The spiritual power just now was many times stronger than the original spiritual vein of the old mountain gate. It was definitely a heaven immortal level spiritual vein. Now, several elders were not the country bumpkins of the past, and they could still see the quality and grade of the spiritual vein at a glance. The mountain guarding array had been launched, and with this heaven immortal level spiritual vein as a spiritual power source, even if there was a supreme master, it would not be able to break in a short time. Chapter 1780. Sometimes, the strength of the mountain guarding formation was related to the spiritual power that could be used. The previous spiritual vein was just an earth immortal spiritual vein, which was not enough for a grand supreme mystic immortal expert. Although this new spiritual vein had just been opened, it was already at the level of a peak celestial immortal. In time, it would not be a problem for it to surpass the celestial immortal level. At that time, wouldn't the Chunyang Palace be as safe as Mount Tai? Yang Chun had long known about this situation. The reason why he chose Linyang River as the location of the sect was because it was the temporary mountain gate of several super sects in the future, and the spiritual vein was unbelievably strong. In the past, Chunyang Palace did not have the power to protect itself, so it could only use the earth immortal spiritual vein to make up for it. Now, after the battle with the major sect, there were almost no people who dared to attack Chunyang Palace. Naturally, they had to use the best spiritual vein. Of course, sometimes it was necessary to hide one's strength. Therefore, before there were so many experts to absorb the spiritual power, all the spiritual power was temporarily channeled into the mountain guarding formation. Anyway, as long as one cultivated in the sect, there would always be enough spiritual power, even for a celestial immortal expert. The celestial immortal disciples who guarded the Wanbao Tower were the killers that elderly gave to Yang Chun. It was about time for them to be transferred back to the sect. In the past, because there was only one earth immortal spiritual vein, it was not enough to meet their cultivation requirements. Moreover, when the Wanbao Tower was newly established, they still needed to guard it. Now that the Wanbao Tower had completely gained a foothold in the spiritual realm, and the sect also had a celestial spiritual vein, it was time to bring them back to the sect. He believed that with this group of celestial and earth immortal super killers, Elderbug, and the mountain guarding formation outside, if there were any experts who wanted to touch Chunyang Palace, it would not be possible for 3 or 4 Grand Supreme Mystic Immortals to take them down. If either Yang Chun or Gao Yugong Sunling had been in Chunyang Palace at that time, it could only be said that the opponent was a tragedy. Of course, the current mountain gate of Chunyang Palace was not foolproof. If the Zhao family really intended to go all out and launch more than a dozen Taishang experts to besiege it, the new mountain gate would still be broken. The safest way was to adopt the method similar to that of the Zhao family, or it could be said that it was the method of Chunyang Palace in the mortal world. They would find a suitable cave, refine it, and make it the new mountain gate of Chunyang Palace. This was not a simple matter. Not to mention the mortal world, even in the spiritual world, it seemed that the only family that Yang Chun knew of that had a grotto heaven was the Zhao family. Suitable for the mountain gate's grotto heaven level immortals cave, Yang Chun also knows one in the mortal world, that is the Blue Vault Mountain Immortals cave that has already been obtained. Even Fatty Jing's conch underwater mansion was only the residence of Fatty Jing alone. At most, there were dozens of people. It was still far from being the mountain gate of the Yang Chun Chin Chun. Fortunately, Yang Chun was not an ordinary person. In his memory, there were secrets that others could not imagine at all. In the spiritual world, there was also a cave that was enough to be the mountain gate of a super sect. However, with Yang Chin's current cultivation, it was not enough to collect it, so it could only be delayed. For a period of time, the major sect had been fighting until recently. Then, the major sects of the demon sect, the monster clan, and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance sent representatives one after another to discuss cooperation with Chunyang Palace. Basically, those who came were acquaintances who had cooperated with the mortal world, and the template for cooperation had already been learned from the mistakes of the past. The conditions of the 5 major Dao sects and the Yin-Yang Demon School were almost exactly the same, so there was nothing to fight for. All of them reached a cooperation according to the same conditions. In fact, this time, the major sect's full effort had already shown the sincerity of the major sect. In this regard, Yangchen really could not find a reason not to cooperate with Chunyang Palace. Anyway, it was according to the way in the mortal world. As usual, everyone was very familiar with it. Immediately afterward, Wanbao Tower released the news that, except for the dwelling divine jade that was given to the major sect, there were not many left in Chunyang Palace. In the future, only one could be auctioned every 10 years. As soon as the news came out, the price of the dwelling divine jade soared. In the past, when everyone did not have it, it was fine. Now that there was a chance to get it, even if they had to go bankrupt, one had to know that it was an extra life. Even an expert like Li Cheng chose to leave his natal primordial spirit behind. Who else could guarantee that his cultivation path would be safe and sound? However, although the price of the dwelling divine jade soared, no one dared to have any ideas about Chunyang Palace and Yangchun. This time, the major sect's raid in the spiritual realm scared countless people. Those who thought that they could not fight against dozens of super sect on their own should not think about escaping the pursuit afterward. At that time, even if they had 100 more lives, they would still die, let alone one more life. In the following days, Yangchun moved from Chunyang Palace to the Conch Underwater Mansion. With the Murong sisters, Yangchun directly lived in the Conch Underwater Mansion. It was also the first time that the Murong sisters saw the woman who was going to marry Yangchun as his wife, Fairy Qingyin. Originally, they felt a little unfair. Why could Zhou Xianying be a wife, and they could only be concubines? At first sight, even with the stunning beauty of the Murong sisters, they also felt a sense of sympathy for Zhou Xianying. After hearing about the tragedy of the first half of Zhou Xianying's life, the Murong sisters felt a little sad. Then, they quickly became familiar with Zhou Xianying. They talked and laughed, and there was no sign of unfairness at all. In the Conch Underwater Mansion, Yangchun, Fatty Jing, and the Murong sisters could listen to the zither music of Fairy Qingyin every day. Just listening to these songs, everyone could feel calm. Even when they were cultivating, they did not have to worry about qigong deviation, and their cultivation efficiency had improved a lot. Zhou Xianying had not refined the cave yet, and Yangchun had not given her the dragon beard zither and the dragon bone string pillar. On the one hand, this was the betrothal gift prepared by Yangchun. On the other hand, Brotherly Cheng said that he would help Zhou Xianying refine her celestial phoenix zither. It was better to wait for Gao Yu to come back before taking it out. When they heard that the mountain gate of Chunyang Palace was destroyed, whether it was Fatty Jing or Zhou Xianying, they felt a sense of righteous indignation and immediately went out to find the enemy. When they heard what happened later, they stopped. Fatty Jing was fine and did not feel that the outside world was very noisy, but Zhou Xianying was secretly shocked. The influence of her future husband seemed to be completely beyond common sense. The days in the Conch Underwater Mansion were very leisurely. Yangchun also took advantage of this peaceful time to refine a few furnaces of medicinal pills for everyone to use for cultivation. More than 10 years passed in a flash. On this day, Yangchun and Fatty Jing were drinking and chatting. Fatty Jing suddenly noticed that 2 people had entered the Conch Underwater Mansion. It was Gao Yu and Gong Sunling, whom Yangchun had been waiting for. Chapter 1781. The 2 women had been gone for more than 20 years, close to 30 years. Although Yangchun knew that the place they went to did not have any sect forces, he was still secretly worried. Who knew if they would encounter any blind cultivators or demonic beasts? Now that he saw the 2 women, he was relieved. Without thinking about it, Yangchun left Fatty Jing alone and rushed to the side of the 2 women. He held the 2 women tightly in his arms. Gao Yu and Gong Sunling also missed their husband. They squeezed in Yangchun's arms and didn't want to move at all. The three of them hugged each other. "Greetings, sisters." When the three of them separated, the Murong sisters came up to Gao Yu and Gong Sunling to greet them. They were all sisters, so they were affectionate when they saw each other. "Greetings, sisters." After the Murong sisters greeted each other, to Yang Qin's surprise, Zhou Xianing also came forward and greeted Gao Yu and Gong Sunling. Moreover, her age and cultivation were far superior to Gao Yu and Gong Sunling. She was very polite and called Gao Yu and Gong Sunling's sister. Yang Chen thought that he would have to explain, but he didn't expect that Gao Yu was not surprised at all. She came forward and took Zhou Xianing's hand intimately and said affectionately, "You must be Sister Zhou. Brother Li Cheng has told me about your matter, and I will arrange it for you when I come back this time." Her words made Zhou Xianing's face turn red. Even if she had reached the fairy immortal realm, she was still a virgin girl. When talking about her marriage, she was still shy. More than 10 years ago, Big Brother Li Cheng purposely went to the place where we went and personally explained about Sister Zhou's situation. He also helped us along the way. Gao Yu saw that Yang Chen was a little surprised to hear Brother Li Cheng explain Zhou Xianing's matter, so she quickly told him the reason. Not only did Gao Yu help Gong Sunling, Li Cheng had also told Gao Yu that he would also help Shi Shanshan, Sun Qingxue, Tao Junqi, and Shi Wushuang. Yang Chen understood in his heart that Big Brother Li Cheng had personally gone to various places to verify the results of his deductions. This was also a safe method. With Li Cheng's ability, he didn't need to wait for the experts to unseal themselves to know their yin-yang 5 elements attributes. On the other hand, he saved Yang Chen a lot of explaining to Gao Yu and Gong Sunling, and also saved the women at least 10 years. No matter what, Gao Yu's return was a joyous occasion. Afterwards, Yang Chen solemnly proposed to Zhou Xianing and presented his betrothal gifts, 5 dragon whisker strings and 4 dragon bone string pillars. If she could refine these things into her heavenly phoenix zither, wouldn't its power increase by several times? Zhou Xianing had waited for so many years and finally waited for this day. Her heart was filled with mixed feelings, and she didn't know whether she was happy or confused. Although she had already recognized Yang Chen as her husband, and her body had been seen by Yang Chen, she still felt very uncomfortable living with a man and a big family for many years. Gao Yu was very magnanimous. Not only did she preside over the marriage between Yang Chen and Zhou Xianing, but she also accompanied Zhou Xianing with Gong Sunling and the Murong sisters. After a period of time, all the women were already as close as sisters. Yang Chen looked at all this, and his heart was naturally very happy. Of course, there was another thing that made him equally happy. The yin-yang 5 elements attributes of the supreme mystic immortal experts that Gao Yu and Gong Sunling unsealed were exactly the same as Big Brother Li Cheng's deduction. The expert that Gao Yu unsealed was a butterfly demon. Its original body was a huge butterfly, but at this moment, it turned into a butterfly hairpin and was inserted in Gao Yu's head. The expert that Gong Sunling unsealed was a huge rhinoceros demon. It had just been unsealed not long ago, and it was playing around in the Mountain River geographical map. With these 2 supreme mystic immortal experts, Yang Chen basically didn't have to worry about a repeat of the incident of the Chunyang Palace being destroyed last time. The next days were naturally to get married and wait for Shi Shanshan and the others to return and go to the trial ground together. Big Brother Li Cheng said that the Zhao family's formation was likely to open a space entrance. This time, the seals of 9 supreme mystic immortals were unsealed by accident, and he didn't know if the space entrance would be opened again. But even if it was opened, Yang Chen also had a way to remedy it. Yang Chen had refined the core of the demon continent in Immortal World, and he had also refined the entrance of the Immortal beheading platform. They were all refining spaces, and he believed that this newly opened entrance should not be too difficult to refine. Anyway, what the Zhao family wanted to do, Yang Chen could follow Big Brother Li Cheng to destroy it. It was obviously not a good idea to be sneaky for so many years. Yang Chen only recognized one thing now. That was, following Big Brother Li Cheng, he would not suffer in the future. The news that Chunyang Palace was going to hold a happy event quickly spread throughout the spiritual world. The old mountain gate of Chunyang Palace had just been destroyed by an unknown master, and a new mountain gate had just been built. It seemed that they wanted to use this happy event to bring some joy to Chunyang Palace. Apart from Yang Chen's marriage, no one else was qualified to make Chunyang Palace hold such a big happy event. As soon as the news came out, countless sects began to think about how to take this opportunity to have a relationship with Master Yang in Chunyang Palace. Not for anything else, whether it was the divine perching jade or the prolonging life pill, or even if Grandmaster Yang could come up with one or two new types of pills in the future, having a good relationship with him was like being in a favorable position, wasn't it? Speaking of which, Alchemy Master Yang Chun had 4 wives and 7 concubines, all of whom were stunning beauties. Not only that, each of them was a famous cultivation genius in the past 2,000 years, and all of them came from famous families, which made people envious. Now Master Yang was going to marry a wife, and what was surprising was that it was not a concubine, but a wife. This was a little confusing. Who was the woman he was going to marry? How could she make Yang Chun attach so much importance to her? Was Yang Chun not afraid that the sect of his concubines would be dissatisfied? One should know that even concubines were from the 5 major sects of Taoism. Many people began to inquire about the identity of the woman known as Soft Sound Fairy. However, it seemed that neither Yang Chun nor Soft Sound Fairy thought about hiding Zhou Xianying's origin. So those curious cultivators soon knew that Soft Sound Fairy was the notorious Granny Tianqin in the spiritual world. After learning this news, countless cultivators suddenly burst into an uproar. There was no need to mention Granny Tianqin's infamy. She had an unreasonable personality, and the slightest rebuttal would result in her killing. If it weren't for the fact that Granny Tianqin's songs were irresistible, who knew how many people would have torn this hateful woman to shreds? Chapter 1782. Many people still had a lingering fear of the crazy purge of the major sects some time ago. In fact, in this kind of situation involving tens of thousands of people, it was inevitable that some innocent people would be mistakenly involved. After all, cultivators were also human beings, and humans would make mistakes. The disciples of the major sect were not exempt from this. These innocent people who were accidentally involved would inevitably have some old acquaintances. Naturally, these people would not agree with the actions of the major sect. Anyway, according to the previous standards of a major sect, it was not an exaggeration to say that they were overbearing. No matter how powerful the major sect was, they could not touch some people just because they said that they were not allowed to touch some sect. Weren't they taking themselves too seriously? However, many sect and cultivators could only swallow their anger under the despotic power of the major sect and did not dare to resist at all. Because of Yang Chun, Chunyang Palace was supported by the major sect. They also released a statement that no one or any sect was allowed to touch Chunyang Palace. Many people were unhappy about this matter. Someone dared to go against the will of the world and attack Chunyang Palace, ignoring the warning of the major sect and sending people to attack Chunyang Palace. Those cultivators were actually very happy. Unfortunately, the experts sent were unlucky. They only destroyed the mountain gate of Chunyang Palace, but did not kill any disciple of Chunyang Palace. It was a pity. Of course, it could only be attributed to bad luck. No one in the spiritual realm dared to say that a supreme mystic immortal expert was sent to deal with a sect whose strongest disciple was only at the level of an earthly immortal. That was because they were not strong enough. They could only blame themselves for taking action at the wrong time. The first elder of Yin Yang Demon School also came to discuss cooperation with Chunyang Palace. The subsequent purge was simply a naked demonstration of the overbearing behavior of the major sect. Many cultivators could only be angry but did not dare to speak out. In this case, as the initiator, Chunyang Palace and Yang Chun were inevitably hostile to some extremists. Under the tyranny of the major sect, even if these guys were extremely dissatisfied, they did not dare to express it in words or expressions. Can't you see that the blood of tens of thousands of cultivators hasn't dried up yet? Who would dare to act out of line for no reason? But it was not a problem to criticize Yang Chun and Chunyang Palace in his mind. If Yang Chun had married a fairy with both beauty and skill, then everyone would definitely be jealous. However, Yang Chun actually married the infamous Granny Tianqin. This made some people secretly happy. Granny Tianqin had not seen many people, but she had heard of many. Putting everything else aside, just the fact that she was addressed as Grandma was enough to show her age. Compared with Yang Chun, who had just ascended for less than 200 years, Granny Tianqin could be said to be an old cow eating young grass. Those who had seen Granny Tianqin, not to mention her personality, could guess her appearance just by looking at her exposed eyes and skin. Even if aging was a normal phenomenon, if one's eyes were bigger than the other and of different colors and heights, then she definitely couldn't be called a fairy. So what if Yang Chun had the 5th cycle appearance pill? Could it turn an ugly woman into a fairy? Maybe Yang Chun was just unlucky. He did not know how Granny Tianqin took a fancy to him. Under the situation where Granny Tianqin showed her power, he had no choice but to marry such an old and ugly woman. He even had to announce it to the world, as if he was afraid that Yang Chun would go back on his words. It had to be said that some people just could not bear to see others do well, even if these people had cultivated to the fairy immortal realm. Under various factors, the matter of Yang Chun marrying Granny Tianqin was also regarded as a joke. Even the 5 Elements sect and Chinquin sect were a little dissatisfied. Why could the female disciples of their sect only be concubines, but Granny Tianqin was a wife? If Shi Wushuang and the Murong sisters did not say anything, the 2 sect would definitely jump out. Yang Chen's wedding attracted countless people to congratulate him. However, those who were really qualified to enter Chunyang Palace and attend Yang Chen's wedding were only a few thousand people. Many cultivators just came to celebrate. After presenting their gifts, they could only be received by the disciples of Chunyang Palace in the mountain gate of Chunyang Palace. They were not qualified to appear at the wedding. Many of them, on the surface, came to congratulate and build a closer relationship, but in their hearts, they wanted to see Yang Chun and Chunyang Palace make a fool of themselves. In any case, they were guests. At the wedding, everyone wanted to see the bride's real face. This was not an excessive request, was it? At that time, in the face of an old, ugly woman, how should Yang Chun deal with himself? How should Chunyang Palace deal with itself? Although Granny Tianqin had changed her name to Fairy Soft Sound, a leopard could not change its spots. Could she change her surly character? Once there were some unpleasant sounds at the wedding, wouldn't Granny Tianqin lose her temper on the spot? At that time, the wedding would become a farce. How would Chunyang Palace deal with it? So what if the major sect supported them? They couldn't jump out and say that everyone wanted to make a scene at the wedding. Was it also an attack? What else could they do but watch Chunyang Palace be slapped in the face? After the event, it would definitely reflect the narrow-mindedness of the major sect. They did not have the magnanimity of a dignified sect. Regardless of whether they had bad intentions or not, at the wedding, many guests wanted to see the face of the fierce Granny Tianqin, even if it was just out of curiosity. Therefore, when someone proposed to see the bride after Yang Chun and Fairy Soft Sound bowed to heaven and earth, he received the support of countless people. To many people's surprise, the scene where Yang Chun refused in every way they imagined did not happen. Similarly, the scene where Granny Tianqin lost her temper and disturbed the wedding scene did not happen. Yang Chun took the little hand of Fairy Soft Sound, who was covered with a veil, as if he had just heard a normal request. After asking Fairy Soft Sound gently, Fairy Soft Sound nodded slightly. With such a small action, it could be seen that Yang Chun still respected the Soft Sound Fairy very much. Before making a decision, he still asked for the Soft Sound Fairy's opinion. "Thank you, everyone, for coming to congratulate me. There is nothing I can do to repay you. My wife and I would like to propose a toast to everyone." Yang Chun, with a smile on his face, reached out and picked up 2 wine glasses. One was sent to the hands of the Soft Sound Fairy, and then, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he slowly opened the red veil on the head of the Soft Sound Fairy. A beautiful and refined face appeared in front of everyone. After carefully dressing up, Fairy Soft Sound, who had to be in her best state for her wedding, was glowing. Coupled with a slight blush of shyness, she instantly killed all the cultivators who saw this scene. After the red veil was removed, there was only a large group of dumbfounded faces in front of Yang Chun and Fairy Soft Sound. Their mouths were wide open, and they wanted to drool. Chapter 1783. They had seen beautiful women before, but the people who came to congratulate them had never seen such an irresistible woman. Compared to Yang Chen's other wives and concubines, the appearance of the Soft Sound Fairy didn't seem to have much of an advantage. However, no one knew what kind of aura she had. Even some celestial immortal masters were no exception. They were all obsessed with the appearance of the Soft Sound Fairy. An indescribable silence descended upon the wedding hall. This situation was so strange that even a knowledgeable fellow like Yang Chun couldn't help but be stunned. What was going on? Hundreds of celestial immortals, hundreds of earthly immortals, and even 2 supreme mystic immortals were all staring blankly at Fairy Soft Sound, who had lifted her veil. The entire hall was silent. After the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, someone let out a long sigh of relief. Then, a series of domino-like reactions occurred, and the sound of long sighs of relief rang out. Only then did everyone realize that they had lost their composure. Amidst the chaos, there was another round of commotion before they slowly calmed down. Zhou Xianying had already cleverly covered her head with the red veil again. Everyone was no longer affected by it, and they all congratulated Yang Chun, congratulating Yang Chun for marrying another beautiful woman. Yang Chun also felt that it was strange. Even if Zhou Xianying was really beautiful, it shouldn't be to the point where she could charm all living beings, right? Why would everyone lose their composure like this? Perhaps it was because Zhou Xianying cultivated a sound technique, so she had an outstanding temperament. Or perhaps it was because they had seen too much of a difference between Zhou Xianying's appearance and the legendary Granny Tianqin, so they couldn't accept it for a moment. No one could say for sure. Those cultivators who wanted to see Yang Chun make a fool of himself were destined to return in disappointment. Not only that, but after seeing Zhou Xianying's appearance, they became even more jealous. Yang Chun actually found another peerless beauty. Why did such a good thing have to happen to him and not me? Zhou Xianying seemed to have guessed what those people were thinking. After a glimpse of her face, she immediately covered it up. With her cold personality, what did the thoughts of these fellows have to do with her? If he was happy, he would just laugh it off. If he was unhappy, he would just kill him. These guys were lucky. Today was Yang Chun and Zhou Xianying's big day. Otherwise, those guys with bad intentions would definitely not have a good time. Yang Chun and Zhou Xianying did not stay at the wedding. After Zhou Xianying announced that she would also join Chunyang Palace, Yang Chun took Zhou Xianying back to his small courtyard. On the night of the bridal chamber, no one had disturbed Yang Chun today. The guests outside were naturally greeted by the people of Chunyang Palace. Inside the Dragon Palace, Yang Chun and Zhou Xianying were alone today. Even Gao Yu and Gong Sunling didn't come to share Yang Chun's intention with Zhou Xianying today. Today was Zhou Xianying's wedding day, and the First Lady had to give her face. Husband. Zhou Xianying blushed. After Yang Chun lifted her veil again, she finally called him for the first time. Just now, in front of the public, it was purely Zhou Xianying who wanted to give Yang Chun face. There was no warm and charming atmosphere between the two of them now. The valiant Zhou Xianying had also turned into a shy bride at this moment. From the dissatisfaction of being forced to marry Yang Chun by Li Cheng, to the gradual change of her view of Yang Chun after getting in touch with Yang Chun, to now completely becoming one of Yang Chun's wives, Zhou Xianying's mood had almost experienced a complete reversal. Zhou Xianying believed that if she really didn't want to, whether it was Li Cheng or Yang Chun, they would not force her to comply with that request. But now Zhou Xianying didn't have the slightest grievance in her heart. She only felt happy. Even if she had to share her husband with 11 other equally beautiful and outstanding women, she didn't have any thoughts of being wronged. In extreme joy, Zhou Xianying truly became Yang Chen's woman. This was definitely a beautiful memory for Zhou Xianying. Going to Mount Wu with her husband was even more intoxicating than making a breakthrough in cultivation. As Zhou Xianying's husband, Yang Chun held his wife in his arms and enjoyed the beauty of their mutual love. Suddenly, he discovered another big secret of Zhou Xianying. If it was anyone else, there was no way to detect the secret of Zhou Xianying. Only Yang Chun, who had the memory of his previous life and had stayed in the immortal world for many years, could find the aura that should not appear in this world from Zhou Xianying's body. Before, Yang Chun was wondering that even if Zhou Xianying had temperament and musical cultivation, she should not be able to make everyone intoxicated at the moment she revealed her true face. In fact, this phenomenon had appeared more than once, including Gao Yu, Gong Sunling, the head of the palace, and even Fatty Jing. When they saw Zhou Xianying's true face for the first time, they all had the same intoxicated expression. At that time, Yang Chen didn't think much about it. He just thought that everyone knew what Granny Tianqin looked like before, so when they saw Soft Sound Fairy who had undergone earth-shaking changes, they would naturally be shocked and didn't think much about it. However, after having sex with Zhou Xianying, when Yang Chun was able to perceive the aura in Zhou Xianying's body, Yang Chun discovered that Zhou Xianying's body had always had a trace of the immortal world's aura. Why did everyone lose their composure when they saw Zhou Xianying's face now, but there was no such performance when they saw Granny Tianqin before? That was because when Yang Chun unlocked Zhou Xianying's seal, he also unlocked the barrier that imprisoned this trace of immortal world's aura, so that the immortal world's aura could be quietly released and affected everyone. Yang Chun didn't know how many almighty immortals he had seen in his memory. A trace of the immortal world's aura. He had long been accustomed to it, so he didn't feel anything when facing Zhou Xianying. However, everyone else was from the spiritual world. Suddenly being infected by a trace of the upper realm's aura, they couldn't help but fall into a state of absent-mindedness. One must know that it was the aura of the immortal world that was a level higher than the spiritual world. Even if it was a supreme, profound, immortal master, before entering the immortal world, they were still people of the spiritual world and couldn't really understand the mystery of the immortal world. That was the overwhelming gap of a whole world. It was normal to be suppressed in a sudden contact. However, what puzzled Yang Chun was how could Zhou Xianying have the aura of the immortal world on her body? Could it be that Zhou Xianying herself was from the immortal world? Chapter 1784. If it was a magic treasure with the aura of the immortal world, Yang Chun had no doubt that the magic treasure was sent down from the immortal world. However, if it was his wife, Yang Chun could not believe that his wife turned out to be from the immortal world. It was easy to send things down, but it was not easy to send a living person down. It could be said that it was 100 times more difficult than a mortal ascending to the sky. One had to know that the worst cultivation in the immortal world was at least a profound, immortal-level expert. If Zhou Xianying really came from the immortal world, then her cultivation should at least be at the profound, immortal level, and not the current early heaven immortal level. However, it was a fact that Zhou Xianying had not undergone the heavenly tribulation in the mortal world before. Otherwise, she would not have been visited by the heavenly tribulation in the Conch underwater mansion. According to this inference, it was not completely unacceptable for Zhou Xianying to come down from the immortal world. Why did Big Brother Li Cheng want Yang Chun to marry Zhou Xianying? Could it be that he saw something? Perhaps what Big Brother Li Cheng saw was the fact that Yang Chun had only discovered a little bit of clues now. Zhou Xianying was very shy in Yang Chen's arms. She closed her eyes and felt her husband's love. She did not notice that Yang Chen's spiritual sense was consciously searching for something in her body. She thought that it was just an intimate action between her husband and herself. She was shy and did not dare to think about anything else. Yang Chun, who was holding his wife in his arms, showed a trace of astonishment on his face after a careful exploration with his spiritual sense. At this time, Yang Chun did not know whether he should cry or laugh, because in Zhou Xianying's body, he once again found a secret seal that could not be more hidden. This seal was in Zhou Xianying's private place. Even if it was Zhou Xianying herself, it was estimated that she would not be able to easily detect it. At least, looking at her current appearance, it did not seem like she knew about this seal. If it weren't for the fact that Yang Chun and Zhou Xianying had already consummated their marriage, No matter how capable he was, it would be impossible for him to check whether Zhou Xianying's private parts were sealed or not. Firstly, he couldn't think of it, and secondly, he wouldn't have the chance to do so. The discovery of this seal also made Yang Chun suspect that Zhou Xianying was someone from the immortal world. His confidence rose from 50% to 80%. This was because Yang Chun could recognize this seal. It was a seal that suppressed one's cultivation. In other words, the early heavenly immortal cultivation that Zhou Xianying displayed now wasn't her true cultivation. This was definitely the seal of the immortal world. If the seal of the immortal world was used to suppress the cultivation of those below the Xian immortal stage, then it would be almost impossible for Zhou Xianying to cultivate to the heavenly immortal stage. This could only mean one thing. Zhou Xianying's cultivation had surpassed the profound immortal realm. This was also the reason why Yang Chun could increase his chances of winning by 30%. To be completely sure, Yang Chun also needed to confirm that Zhou Xianying's spiritual consciousness had not been tampered with. This was not an obstacle for the two of them, who had already become husband and wife. Yang Chun simply said that he had a set of spiritual consciousness dual cultivation method. Zhou Xianying did not doubt it, and immediately began to cultivate with Yang Chun. Under the guidance of Yang Chun, the two quickly entered the state of spiritual consciousness dual cultivation. Yang Chun's spiritual consciousness and Zhou Xianying's immediately mixed together. Zhou Xianying was directly shocked by Yang Chun's extremely pure grade 3 heavenly immortal spiritual consciousness. Even if she had a unique cultivation method, and her spiritual consciousness cultivation was a bit stronger than her spiritual power cultivation, so far, Zhou Xianying's spiritual consciousness was only at the grade 7 heavenly immortal stage. Yang Chun was just a human immortal stage, but his spiritual consciousness cultivation was almost on the same level as hers. Moreover, in terms of purity, he had left her far behind. Fortunately, the spiritual consciousness dual cultivation itself, in addition to balancing the spiritual consciousness of both parties, had another effect, which was to condense the spiritual consciousness. Under the skillful guidance of Yang Chun, Zhou Xianying quickly entered the state. Her spiritual consciousness was constantly being condensed by Yang Chun's spiritual consciousness, and even her sea of consciousness was completely opened up to Yang Chun. Yang Chun's spiritual consciousness easily entered Zhou Xianying's sea of consciousness. Sure enough, as Yang Chun expected, in Zhou Xianying's sea of consciousness, there was also an extremely hidden seal. It was also a seal from the immortal world, and the effect was the same as the seal on Zhou Xianying's body, which was used to suppress spiritual consciousness. Now Yang Chun could be 100% sure that Zhou Xianying came to the spiritual world from the immortal world, and Zhou Xianying should be a person from the immortal world. With this premise, Yang Chun could guess a lot of things. From Zhou Xianying's performance in her previous life, coupled with Yang Chun's current understanding of her current situation, Zhou Xianying should not know this. Since Zhou Xianying's memory did not show any signs of being sealed, that was to say, Zhou Xianying should have been sent to the spiritual world when she had no memory. Perhaps he was sent down not long after he was born, when he didn't understand anything. In this way, the seal on the surface of Zhou Xianying's body was not only to make Zhou Xianying ugly, but also to prevent people from coveting her appearance. It was likely that it was a seal formation that protected Zhou Xianying from being hurt when she went down to the spiritual world from the immortal world, but after experiencing the process of going down to the spiritual world, it lost that part of its effect. After all, even the most unreasonable cultivators understood the importance of appearance for women. If they could use this method to protect their descendants, how could they not know what kind of situation her seal would put her in? Apart from this explanation, nothing else made sense. This was the only explanation that could explain so many things. It seemed that he had married a great wife. Yang Chun thought so in his heart. He didn't say much in his mouth, but he also began to wonder if he should properly disclose some things to Zhou Xianying, so that she would not become more irritable in the future due to the truth being revealed. Yang Chun was familiar with the two seal formations. If the method of unlocking the seal was from the outside, it would be very difficult, but if Zhou Xianing unlocked it from the inside, it would be quite easy as long as a very simple combination of a few secret arts was enough. Yang Chun called Zhou Xianing in his unique way. After thinking about his words, he said to Zhou Xianing very formally, "If you encounter danger in the future, if in a life or death situation, you only need to use these techniques in your sea of consciousness." Zhou Xianing was now his wife, so Yang Chun certainly hoped that she would be safe from now on. Whether Zhou Xianing knew or not, Yang Chun had to tell her this as a way for Zhou Xianing to save her life. When Yang Chun said the few secret arts and the order of command, he saw Zhou Xianing's extremely surprised expression. "Husband, how did you know?" Zhou Xianing's heart was filled with shock. This was her last secret. So how did Yang Chun know? Was it because of the spiritual sense, dual cultivation? Chapter 1785. Zhou Xianing had the biggest secret that only she knew. She didn't even know how she knew this secret. She only knew that there was always a memory in her mind. That is, when she encountered a life and death situation, she would use those secret arts in the order in her sea of consciousness. As for what would happen after using the secret art, Zhou Xianing herself did not know. Moreover, the memory clearly warned that if it was not a life and death situation, never try it. There would be unpredictable consequences. Zhou Xianing had almost never encountered a life and death situation, so she had never tried to use the secret. This was a secret that only existed in Zhou Xianing's mind. Zhou Xianing had never said it to outsiders, but how did Yang Chun know it? Zhou Xianing's first thought after being surprised was that Yang Chun had stolen her memory during the spiritual awareness double cultivation, but she denied this guess in a second. If Yang Chun had stolen her memory, then there was no need to tell her what she knew again, right? Moreover, stealing her memory so blatantly was a great disrespect for herself. Yang Chun was such a smart person that he would not know the consequences of doing this. "You know this." The expression on Yang Chun's face seemed to be surprised, but also like a kind of sudden realization. It looked very complicated. Zhou Xianing nodded in response to Yang Chun's question, and then asked again, "How did you know?" "Husband, it's related to the seal on you." Yang Chun did not directly tell Zhou Xianing the truth. First, this matter was too incredible and it was not easy to explain. Second, Yang Chun did not want Zhou Xianing to carry a burden for this and affect her cultivation. So he pushed the explanation to the previous seal. "If I'm not wrong, it should be the protection of one of your elders, and these secret arts are the last means of protection." Yang Chun unlocked the ugly seal, indicating that Yang Chun knew about the seal, so it was not surprising that he knew something deeper. Zhou Xianing did not doubt him and accepted Yang Chun's explanation. Yang Chun also easily passed on the idea that the seal was the protection of Zhou Xianing's elders. In her previous life, Zhou Xianing had been discriminated against in the spiritual realm. Even after she arrived in the immortal realm, she did not completely get over it. She did not have a good impression of her father, who had placed the seal on her. She even had a falling out with him. If Yang Chun didn't know that Zhou Xianing was sent down from the immortal world, he would definitely object to her father's actions. It was one thing to protect her, but he didn't consider Zhou Xianing's feelings at all. It was a little too irresponsible. However, now that he knew that the sealing formation was very likely the key to sending the immortal realm to the spirit realm, he had no choice but to cause Zhou Xianing's tragedy. In this case, Zhou Xianing was his wife, so it was necessary for Yang Chun to resolve the conflict between the father and daughter. Yang Chun's plan was to let Zhou Xianing slowly accept these concepts imperceptibly and slowly eliminate the hostility that she had accumulated before. Anyway, now that Zhou Xianing had restored her appearance, as long as Yang Chun put in more effort, it would not be a problem. While Yang Chun and Zhou Xianing were enjoying their wedding night, Chunyang Palace was in chaos outside. The cause of all this started from Zhou Xianing's announcement at the wedding that she had joined Chunyang Palace. When Zhou Xianing was still Granny Tianqin, she was alone. She was a powerful individual cultivator. Logically speaking, it was normal for an individual cultivator to join a sect. It was not worth making a fuss at all. In particular, Zhou Xianying joined her husband's sect. It was natural for her to follow her husband. There should be no problem in this aspect. However, it was this move that triggered a series of changes that countless people did not expect. Of course, there would not be any drastic changes at the wedding. Chunyang Palace had just built a new mountain gate and established cooperation with a major sect of Taoism, devil, and demon sect. Not long ago, the major sect had swept the spirit realm on a large scale. At this time, it was simply courting death to make a move on Chunyang Palace. No one would make trouble for themselves. But then, when the guests from all over the world slowly left, and some of the news of Yangchun and Zhou Xianying's wedding spread, some individual cultivators began to rush to Chunyang Palace one after another, asking to join Chunyang Palace. Chunyang Palace was now a small sect, and it welcomed some individual cultivators who were alone. As long as someone came to join Chunyang Palace, after some simple tests, Chunyang Palace would temporarily accept them as outer disciples. In the future, after a long period of testing their loyalty, they would join the sect as official disciples. If someone came to join, Chunyang Palace would not refuse. For the time being, except for the things in Yang Chen's hands, Chunyang Palace had nothing worthy of being coveted by others. Anyway, they were just outer disciples, so Chunyang Palace would not refuse anyone. At first, there were only some human immortal individual cultivators from all over the world. All of them asked to join Chunyang Palace. As for the reason, there was only one reason. That was because the former Granny Tianqin and the current Fairy Soft Sound Zhou Xianying had joined Chunyang Palace. They also had to join. The core high-level officials of Chunyang Palace did not expect that Zhou Xianying's joining the sect would bring such appeal, which was a pleasant surprise. These individual cultivators all became the outer disciples of Chunyang Palace without any difficulties. However, the number of human immortal individual cultivators who came to join Chunyang Palace really shocked the palace master and the elders. At first, there were only dozens of them, and then hundreds of them came in groups. In the end, thousands of human immortal individual cultivators came in one day, and all of them wanted to join Chunyang Palace, and all of them were like this for more than 10 days. Li Cheng once told Yang Chun that marrying Zhou Xianying would be of great benefit to Yang Chun and to Chunyang Palace. Now, it seemed that this was obviously one of the benefits. With this premise, Yang Chun and the palace master discussed and accepted all the tens of thousands of human immortal individual cultivators. In just 1 month, in terms of the number of people, Chunyang Palace had become a solid big sect. The expansion speed of Chunyang Palace frightened many people, including the high-level officials of Chunyang Palace themselves. They did not expect that in just 1 month, Chunyang Palace had changed from a total of more than 100 people to a big sect with tens of thousands of people. This matter was truly too inconceivable, and no one dared to believe that all of this was true. However, this was not the end. What happened next was even more shocking. Chapter 1786. If it was just the addition of tens of thousands of human immortal disciples, the other sect would not feel too much of a threat. After all, the human immortal level was just the bottom level in the spiritual realm. Apart from being a little better than the Aborigines, it was not worth making a fuss about. No matter how many people there were, it was just a join in the fun. If they wanted to become a real big sect, it depended on the number of masters. Just when everyone thought that Chunyang Palace could only expand so much, many Earth Immortal Masters began to appear in Chunyang Palace. Like the previous human immortal individual cultivators, these people also came to seek refuge in Chunyang Palace. The reason for seeking refuge was also stunning. It was also because Granny Tianqin joined Chunyang Palace, so they also wanted to join Chunyang Palace. Not only the people in Chunyang Palace, but even Gentle Sound Fairy, Zhou Xianying herself, was stunned. She had no idea when she had such a huge appeal that she could bring so many people to join Chunyang Palace. Only Yang Chun understood that this was obviously the arrangement of Zhou Xianying's father, who was a big shot in the immortal realm. There were so many individual cultivators in the spiritual realm. They seemed to be individual cultivators, but in fact, they should be a powerful organization that secretly protected Zhou Xianying. Otherwise, with Granny Tianqin's character of killing people easily, how could she live safely until now? No matter how strong Zhou Xianying's cultivation was, and how powerful the heavenly phoenix zither was, it was impossible for her to resist the siege of so many masters. Until now, Zhou Xianying was still alive, which could only mean that there was a big organization hiding in the dark, secretly handling everything for Zhou Xianying. These masters who came to seek refuge should be the power behind Zhou Xianying. Unfortunately, Zhou Xianying herself did not seem to know about it, at least not before she married Yang Chun. So many people came to seek refuge, and all of them showed their names, indicating that they joined Chunyang Palace because of Zhou Xianying. Even if Zhou Xianying was stupid and kept in the dark, she had now figured everything out. Although she still didn't know which elder of hers had made such arrangements, everything that elder had arranged for her was truly moving. Looking at the Earth Immortal experts rushing to Chunyang Palace and joining as outer sect disciples, it was impossible for Zhou Xianying not to feel touched. Towards this elder that she had never met before, Zhou Xianying no longer felt the hatred she had when she first found out that her body was sealed and not born with it. On the contrary, she felt an unprecedented sense of gratitude and shock, and at the same time, more doubts. What kind of person would do this for her? Before this, Yang Chun had never tasted the feeling of being cared for by others. Suddenly discovering that there was such a terrifying number of people secretly protecting him, that feeling was simply indescribable. The more it was like this, the more Zhou Xianying wanted to know who the person who arranged all of this was and what kind of relationship he had with her. From the first earthly immortal to the last one who joined Chunyang Palace, the number of earthly immortals directly exceeded thousands. With such a huge force, even some sects with a long history couldn't help but look askance at them. Thousands of earthly immortal experts were enough to turn Chunyang Palace into a second-rate sect. However, this was not the end. After the earthly immortal experts, it was the turn of the celestial immortal experts. Although everyone in Chunyang Palace had a glimmer of hope in their hearts that this time, with the help of Zhou Xianying, they could add a few more celestial immortals. However, when the celestial immortals really appeared in front of them, everyone could not help but feel surprised. Compared with the human immortals and earthly immortals, there were not many celestial immortals, but the number had reached more than 200. The celestial immortals seemed to have the dignity of the celestial immortals. They did not come in a group, but one every day. It took several months just to receive and recruit these celestial immortals. More than 200 celestial immortals were enough to push Chunyang Palace to the strength of a first-rate sect. With so many experts, even without the support of the 5 sects, ordinary cultivators would not dare to do anything to Chunyang Palace. In the past, only dozens of celestial immortals from the 5 sects had spoken, and people did not dare to provoke Chunyang Palace easily. Now, there were more than 200 celestial immortals in Chunyang Palace. Did they want to kill themselves quickly? Everyone in the Pure Yang Palace, including Zhou Xianying, was stunned to see all this happen, and they couldn't believe their eyes. Even Zhou Xianying herself could not believe it. What was the identity of her elder? How could he have such a terrible influence? What kind of strength and appeal did he have? How could he make so many celestial immortals submit to him? Only Yang Chun, because of Brotherly Cheng's reminder and knowing Zhou Xianying's life experience, could guess some of it. He did not seem so surprised. With the help of Zhou Xianying's father, Yang Chen's father-in-law, and the great man in the immortal world, it was a simple thing to arrange a first-rate sect in the spiritual realm to protect his daughter. In fact, he did not need to arrange it himself at all. It was enough to pass his will to a few masters who could control these forces. Obviously, the forces that were worth the arrangement of the great man were definitely not just a few celestial immortals. At least, they had to have enough power in the spiritual realm to completely protect his daughter. So, masters at the level of supreme mystic immortals were necessary. Everyone was almost going crazy. After more than 200 celestial immortals, Chunyang Palace welcomed more than a dozen supreme mystic immortals. Without exception, they all claimed to be Zhou Xianying's subordinates and asked to join Chunyang Palace. More than a dozen supreme mystic immortals. None of them seemed to be good people. The head of the palace and the elders who were responsible for the reception were already a little uneasy in their hearts. It was a good thing that there were so many masters in Chunyang Palace, and the strength of the outer disciples had greatly increased. However, was the current Chunyang Palace still the Chunyang Palace in the minds of the head of the palace and the elders? Was it still the Chunyang Palace that struggled in the mortal world and did not cut off the inheritance of the ancestors? With so many masters joining Chunyang Palace, with the strength of the head of the palace and the elders at the level of human immortals, what right did they have to command these masters? Why did they order them with the identity of the head of the palace and the elders? Even with the name of the head of the palace and the elders, not to mention these supreme mystic immortals, even those masters at the level of earth immortals and celestial immortals would not be obedient, and whether they could be restrained by the sect rules was still a problem. Don't worry, Palace Master. Since they dare to come to us, we dare to accept them. When the head of the palace gave these concerns to Yang Chun and Yang Chun to discuss, Yang Chun waved his hand and gave his own advice. Don't say that we have the means to suppress them. Even if we don't, with a ing, who dares to turn the sky? Chapter 1787. Zhou Xianying herself had fallen into a complete daze after seeing the continuous emergence of experts. She had never thought that an ugly old woman who was hated by all would have so many experts behind her back. It seemed that Zhou Xianying's fierce reputation was not only because of herself. These experts hiding in the dark would deal with Zhou Xianying's enemies according to the degree of threat. Those who were strong enough to defeat Zhou Xianying would be let go, so that Zhou Xianying could practice and gain experience. Those who were weak enough would be killed silently, but the credit for killing the enemy would be given to Zhou Xianying. Zhou Xianying had figured out many things that she couldn't figure out before. Coupled with the magic formula that had existed in her mind since she could remember, Zhou Xianying was now more and more curious about her true identity. What kind of big shot could make her become the master of a first-class sect in an instant? The constant changes in Zhou Xianying's expectations over the past year had made Zhou Xianying an extremely tenacious person. Even if someone suddenly appeared and told her that she was the daughter of a big shot in the immortal world, she probably wouldn't be too surprised. Of course, Zhou Xianying had no idea how close her conjecture was to the truth. The sudden and crazy expansion of Chunyang Palace not only frightened the people of Chunyang Palace, but also many cultivators. Whether it was the ordinary cultivators or the experts of the major sect, all of them were dumbfounded as they watched Chunyang Palace suddenly turn from a small sect that depended on others to such a giant in less than a year. More than a dozen supreme mystic immortals, hundreds of fairy immortals, thousands of earth immortals, and tens of thousands of human immortal disciples. This lineup was enough to rank in the top 100 in the spiritual world. With such strength, Chunyang Palace didn't need the protection of any sect at all. The sudden emergence of a large number of experts also puzzled countless sect members. After a little investigation, they found that all these cultivators turned out to be rogue cultivators. There was no formation of an organization, but they could always be connected by master and disciple or good friends. If one looked closely, it could be seen that this was a loose organization led by the dozen supreme mystic immortals. In the past, this organization had never displayed its strength. It could even be said that it had never shown its strength to the outside world. It was completely hidden in the dark. If Zhou Xianying had not suddenly announced that she would join Chunyang Palace, these people would not have appeared at all. Many sect members began to reconsider their relationship with Chunyang Palace and reevaluate Chunyang Palace's position in their hearts. But anyway, the gate of Chunyang Palace was much safer because of the sudden expansion of strength this time. What other people thought of Chunyang Palace was one thing. The problem was, right now, inside Chunyang Palace. The original higher-ups of Chunyang Palace were trembling with fear and trepidation as they reorganized Chongyang Palace's strength. Although Yang Chun has made it clear that these new outer disciples joined because of the relationship with Zhou Xianying, and not to worry too much, the head of the palace and the elders still did not dare to fully trust them. It was the same for anyone except Yang Chun. Such a force that could kill them hundreds of times at any time was around. Who dared to relax? Since they can kill us hundreds of times at any time, what's the point of us guarding against them? At this point, Yang Chun was open-minded and smiled to persuade the head of the palace. My Chunyang Palace has finally gained a foothold in the spiritual world. If it is destroyed, how can we face the ancestors of Chunyang Palace? The head of the palace also understood this truth, but there was no way to relax like Yang Chun. Rest assured, Palace Master. Yang Chun once again gave the head of the palace a reassuring pill. No matter what changes there are, we are not afraid that they can overturn the sky. With Yang Chun, a husband with a low cultivation base but extensive knowledge, Zhou Xianying's life and cultivation were very smooth. As newlyweds, the love life of the young couple seemed to be really sweet. Although Zhou Xianying used to be surly when she was Grandma Tianqin, it did not mean that she was a stupid woman who didn't understand anything. Only if Yang Chun wanted to marry her, he must get Gao Yu's consent. This small move made Zhou Xianying clearly understand Gao Yu's position in Yang Chen's mind. Therefore, Zhou Xianying was very smart and never proud of her own cultivation base and power. In front of Gao Yu and Gong Sunling, she also called her sister, never overstepping. Gao Yu and Gong Sunling had long been accustomed to Yang Chen's group of wives and concubines, so they were familiar with this. They got along well with Zhou Xianying, and everyone was happy and harmonious. Under this premise, Yang Chen's backyard seemed very harmonious. In the end, all the women were genius cultivators, completely unlike those ordinary women who had to rely on their beauty and rely on competing for favor in front of their husbands to realize their self-worth. Each of them had a bright future. Basically, it was rare to see such a thing as competing for favor among the women. However, Zhou Xianying did not compete for favor did not mean that others could accept this result calmly. After Chunyang Palace expanded to a certain extent and stopped, there were still two supreme masters who found Zhou Xianying. Miss, the leader was an old lady with white hair, a real grandmother-level master. But when facing Zhou Xianying, she was full of respect and directly called her Mississippi. Who am I? Zhou Xianying knew that someone would definitely look for her, so she was not surprised at all. She asked a question about her identity. Mrs. Identity, I can't say it clearly. The old lady replied quickly. Listening to her answer, Zhou Xianying's face couldn't help showing a look of dissatisfaction. Miss, I really don't know. Seeing this scene, the old lady couldn't help but smile bitterly. If she really knew, would she dare not say it? If Yang Chun was here, he would not think that this old lady was hiding something. Zhou Xianying's father even covered up Zhou Xianying's appearance. How could her true identity be leaked to a cultivator who was not in the same realm? Was she not afraid of being taken hostage directly? You have never appeared before. Why did you join Chunyang Palace with such great fanfare this time? Are you afraid that others don't know you? Seeing that the old lady and the other master did not seem to know each other and wanted to hide, Zhou Xianying did not continue to ask, but just asked another seemingly unrelated question. The gate of Chunyang Palace has just been attacked. Even if the major sect retaliated once, there will be many similar attacks. The old lady replied quickly. If Miss did not join Chunyang Palace, we naturally don't have to show up. But since Miss is a member of Chunyang Palace, we must not let Miss's sect be trampled wantonly. Chapter 1788. At this point, Zhou Xianying could understand. After knowing that there was such a group of people secretly protecting her, Zhou Xianying carefully analyzed the previous things. It seemed that the primary task of this group of cultivators headed by the old granny was to protect Zhou Xianying's safety. Secondly, it was to prevent Zhou Xianying from suffering substantial grievances, such as being bullied or oppressed. If Zhou Xianying was attacked and destroyed after joining Chunyang Palace, it would be a shame for Zhou Xianying. Therefore, These people immediately joined Chunyang Palace in a high profile, so that the enemies of Chunyang Palace would no longer dare to underestimate them. This logic was actually very simple. Zhou Xianying was a smart person. After knowing the whole story, she didn't ask anymore. She just bowed to the old granny and another old man. "Thank you for your hard work over the years. You're too kind." The two supreme masters hurriedly got up and returned the salute. They didn't have the bearing of a supreme master at all. It was clear that they were two loyal servants facing their master. Of course, this was not far from the truth. Speaking of which, the two supreme masters were the leaders of these people. The other supreme masters also directly listened to the two of them. Then, through these supreme masters, they directly or indirectly controlled the tens of thousands of people who had joined Chunyang Palace. It could be said that the majority of the power of Chunyang Palace was now in the hands of these two people. The old granny's name was Si Qinxiu, a very rare surname. The other male Xian Immortal Master was called Gu Zhishang. Both of them were told by their masters to protect Granny Tianqin when their cultivation reached the peak of Fairy Immortal. At that time, Granny Tianqin was just a newcomer in the spiritual realm at the second stage of human immortal. After introducing themselves, Si Qinxiu told Zhou Xianying the purpose of their visit this time. "Miss, we control 99% of the power of Chunyang Palace, so we think that Miss should be the real palace master of Chunyang Palace." Si Qinxiu might have been in the position of Supreme Xian Immortal for a long time. His words and actions had a strong sense of overall control. He directly pointed out the position of the palace master of Chunyang Palace. In addition, Miss Si Qinxiu did not finish his sentence immediately. Instead, he hesitated for a moment and raised his head to look at Zhou Xianying's expression. Seeing that Zhou Xianying's expression didn't change, he gritted his teeth and said, "In terms of appearance, Miss is the most beautiful. In terms of cultivation, Miss is also the highest. With Miss's status, how can you be placed below a few human immortal juniors? Miss is the most suitable person to be the first wife of the son-in-law's family." This was what Si Qinxiu and the others couldn't tolerate the most. Zhou Xianying actually married Yang Chun, a playboy with 4 wives and 7 concubines. No matter how talented Yang Chun was, no matter how high his alchemy potential was, it was still the young miss who had lowered herself to marry him. Not only was she not wholeheartedly devoted to him, she was even ranked 5th. How could Si Qinxiu and the others, who had always treated Zhou Xianying as their master, let this matter go? However, seeing that Zhou Xianying's face was glowing red, it was obvious that the couple was in love. Si Qinxiu and the others didn't say much at first, but now they finally revealed their intentions. In the hearts of Si Qinxiu and Gu Zhishang, this was already the limit of what they could accept. They didn't ask Yang Chun to divorce his other wives and concubines. Instead, they tolerated the young miss and those human immortal juniors working together with Yang Chun. It could be said that they gave enough face to Yang Chun and the other women. With Zhou Xianying's status and cultivation, it wasn't too much to ask for the position of the first wife of the family, right? What's the use of these empty titles? Listening to Si Qinxiu's words, Zhou Xianying directly shook her head. After living with Yang Chun for so long, Gao Yu's position in Yang Chen's heart became more and more clear. How could Zhou Xianying make Yang Chun angry over this matter? Moreover, it was just a title. What was the point of fighting over it? Could it be that Yang Chun was still the emperor of the human world? Did she really have to become a concubine who fought for the title of empress? Young Miss is too kind. Si Qinxiu looked at Zhou Xianying lovingly, as though she was his own daughter. In reality, it was almost the same. From the time Zhou Xianying grew up from a little girl to the present she was now, Si Qinxiu had been secretly watching her grow up. In Si Qinxiu's heart, Zhou Xianying was the best. Even though she was already infamous when she was still Granny Tianqin, this did not prevent Si Qinxiu from giving Zhou Xianying a very kind evaluation. "Don't worry, young miss." Si Qinxiu knew that with Zhou Xianying's current status and position, it was impossible for her to say or do what they just said. Thus, he was not surprised by Zhou Xianying's reaction. Young Miss just needs to wait. Leave everything else to us. Just when Zhou Xianying was about to stop them, she suddenly remembered the words that Yang Chun had reminded her not long ago. In the end, she did not say anything to stop them. After hesitating for a moment, she instructed them according to Yang Chen's instructions. Don't kill anyone. Yes, young miss. Si Qinxiu and Gu Zhishang were overjoyed. The two of them simultaneously bowed to Zhou Xianying and walked out in high spirits. Their vigor was like that of two generals who were about to go to war. After watching the two of them walk away, Zhou Xianying returned to the Dragon Palace and saw Yang Chun drinking with a man. No outsider had ever entered the Dragon Palace before. Zhou Xianying took a few steps forward and confirmed the identity of the person who was drinking with Yang Chun. It was Li Cheng, who had guided her to seek treatment from Yang Chun. Thank you, Mr. Li, for your guidance. Ever since Zhou Xianying became Soft Sound Fairy, she no longer felt inferior because of her ugly appearance. Her personality had also changed a lot. When she saw Li Cheng, she immediately bowed to thank him. No need to thank me. You two are fated. Li Cheng looked at Zhou Xianying with a smile and said, I once promised to help you refine the heavenly phoenix zither as a greeting gift. It just so happens that I have time these few days. Bring it over so that I can start. Zhou Xianying didn't hesitate and immediately took out the heavenly phoenix zither and the dragon bone string pillar. She handed them over to Li Cheng. Yang Chun had told Zhou Xianying about this the second day after their marriage. Zhou Xianying was also very grateful to Li Cheng. Even though she didn't feel that Li Cheng could refine his natal magic treasure well with his human immortal realm cultivation, she still took it out. If it was in the past, this would be an impossible thing. It had to be said that after recovering her appearance and marrying Yang Chun, Zhou Xianying's personality had indeed changed a lot. Husband, Granny C and Mr. Gu came to find me and told me about what you said that day. After thanking Li Cheng, Zhou Xianying said to her husband, I have already told them according to husband's instructions. However, husband, if they go overboard, how are you going to deal with them? Chapter 1789. Speaking of which, it's a little offensive to these seniors. In the face of Zhou Xianying's question, Yang Chun replied with a smile. However, I think the simplest way is to let them thoroughly recognize who has a big fist. Yang Chen's words made Zhou Xianying's eyes widen in surprise. The group of forces that belonged to Zhou Xianying, led by Si Qinxiu and Gu Zhishang, had more than a dozen supreme, mystic immortal experts. Yang Chun actually wanted to let them know who had the bigger fist. However, being surprised was just being surprised. Zhou Xianying did not question Yang Chen's words on the spot. A smart woman knew when she should give her husband some face in front of outsiders. Now that Yang Chen's sworn brother Li Cheng was next to him, no matter how much Zhou Xianying objected, she would not let her husband lose face in front of his brother. Be careful. With just such a reminder, Zhou Xianying bid farewell to Yang Chun and Li Cheng with a ladylike etiquette and returned to her room without saying a word. How is it? The Wi-Fi found for you is not bad, right? Li Cheng looked at Zhou Xianying's pure ladylike performance and said proudly to Yang Chun, this old man's eyes have never been wrong. No matter how good she is still my wife. Yang Chun retorted with a smile and immediately asked, what's the result of walking around? Li Cheng actually just came back. He had just sat down, and the dishes made by Gong Sunling had not yet been served. Zhou Xianying came over to greet him, and he didn't have time to say a lot of things. It confirmed our guess, and also completely changed the route of those spirit veins. If the effect is good, it may be able to make the Zhao family's arrangement completely ineffective. Li Cheng drank a cup of jade dragon wine and continued, however, if you want to do it, you have to go to the trial ground. Yang Chun had already expected this. Originally, he planned to wait for the girls to come back, and then everyone would go to the trial ground together. Even if Li Cheng didn't say it, Yang Chun would still go. I did a small favor for a few sisters-in-law. At most half a year, they will all be back. Li Cheng said very casually, but it seemed that he was afraid of Yang Chen's dissatisfaction. So he explained, it's not that I want to destroy their divine sense refinement, but those spirit veins are very important, and must be dealt with properly. It can't be simply destroyed. Yang Chun asked the girls to unlock the seal. In addition to letting them have another Xian immortal master by their side, there was another purpose, which was to take this opportunity to refine their divine sense. Li Cheng's helped directly save the women more than 10 years of training. In any case, Li Cheng had to explain it clearly to Yang Chun. For this matter, how could Yang Chun have a problem with Li Cheng? However, Yang Chun was very strange. Since Li Cheng had to go to various places, why did he still bother to calculate in the Dragon Palace for a long time? Wasn't it redundant? Not at all, not at all. Li Cheng shook his head again and again. Yang Chun's question was not a question at all. Li Cheng had a lot of reasons to explain. If you didn't have 2 maps of the Dragon Palace, you wouldn't be able to accurately locate those locations. If that's the case, you have to wait for Ah Ling to come back and use the Mountain River geographical map to start. I'm afraid there will be some changes in the next 10 years. The array formation has been maintained for who knows how many tens of thousands of years. These 10 years might seem unremarkable, but I've discovered that the array formation has reached a critical moment. If we don't deal with it in advance, we might fall short of success. When Li Cheng talked about this formation, he had a serious expression. If we hadn't quickly dealt with a few spirit veins in the past few years, it might have been too late by the time we determined the attributes of those experts. What about this formation? Yang Chen also became serious. The Zhao family was plotting something big. Whether or not they could destroy such a big formation was a matter of great importance. Now it seems that half of it has been destroyed, and the remaining half still needs to go to the trial ground. Li Cheng replied, "If I'm not wrong, the complete formation should break out in about 700 or 800 years, and now they don't have this chance. The biggest possibility is that they triggered the formation in advance. Without the foundation, the effect is more than 10 times worse." When Li Cheng said that it would break out in 700 or 800 years, Yang Chun suddenly thought of something. Didn't the demonic tribulation of the spiritual realm happen to break out at that time in his memory? Could it be that the demonic tribulation of the spiritual realm was triggered by the Zhao family's formation? Then what is their goal? What was in it for them? This was just Li Cheng's guess, but Yang Chen already believed most of it. Now what Yang Chen wanted to know the most was if there was no demonic tribulation of the spiritual realm, would the spiritual realm still be the original spiritual realm? Big brother, you came back at the right time. Some people on Ying's side are a bit arrogant. We can join forces to teach them a lesson. The demonic tribulation of the spiritual realm was a matter for the future, but now that Li Cheng had returned, it was indeed the most interesting time. Yang Chen believed that Li Cheng would be very interested. "Yes, I'll refine magic treasures for your wife, and teach those disobedient fellows a lesson for you. All the benefits are yours. I won't leave anything behind." Li Cheng was a bit depressed, and he fiercely drank a large cup of wine. "No, in the future, your Ah Ling and those young imperial chefs have to make more delicious food for me. I'll enjoy it to the fullest." The 2 brothers drank to their heart's content, and Li Cheng didn't waste any time, immediately starting to refine the heavenly phoenix zither. Meanwhile, Yang Chun seemed to be doing nothing, waiting for Si Qianxiu and the others to start. Perhaps it was because Shi Shanshan, Sun Qingxue, and the others were coming back in half a year, and Si Qianxiu and Gu Zhishan wanted to take down all of Yang Chen's wives and concubines in one go. During this time, the outer sect disciples behaved themselves, and no one did anything out of line. They obediently built the Chunyang Palace and completed the huge sect. From the outside, it looked like the Chunyang Palace was thriving. Yang Chun, who vaguely guessed the reason, couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. Shi Shanshan, Sun Qingxue, Tao Junqi, and Shi Wushuang, it would be fine if they didn't come back, but with 4 supreme mystic immortal experts, Si Qianxiu and the others didn't have much chance of winning. He wondered if they would regret it if they knew the result. Li Cheng's hands and feet were very fast, and the heavenly phoenix zither was reforged in just 4 months. In fact, Li Cheng didn't carry out a thorough refining, but simply upgraded the heavenly phoenix zither with the help of Gao Yu's refining tools. The heavenly phoenix zither was Zhou Xianying's natal magic treasure, and the specific refining work was done by Zhou Xianying herself. As Li Cheng expected, after half a year, Shi Shanshan, Sun Qingxue, and the others returned to Chunyang Palace one after another. It seemed that it was time for Si Qianxiu and the others to take action. Chapter 1790. What the master of the palace had been worried about finally happened. The outer disciples, led by Si Qianxiu and Gu Zhishang, who joined the Chunyang Palace in the late stage, actually asked the master of the palace to abdicate and replace him with someone else to take charge of the Chunyang Palace. Fortunately, these guys were not stupid, but mostly considered for Zhou Xianying, so the palace master they intended to push out was the current young palace master, Yang Chun. In their eyes, Zhou Xianying was obviously not suitable to be the master of the palace at once, so it sounded good to be the wife of the palace master. Therefore, it was reasonable to push Yang Chun to the position of the palace master. Hearing this request, the palace master and the elders almost wanted to cooperate with Si Qianxiu and Gu Zhishang. If it weren't for Yang Chen's determination not to be the palace master, he would have been the palace master long ago. If these people wanted to push out someone else, no one at the core level would agree, but to push out Yang Chun, everyone was happy to see it. In the eyes of Si Qianxiu and Gu Zhishang, the performance of the core high-level members gave them a very sensible feeling. Seeing that the palace master was so sensible, Si Qianxiu and Gu Zhishang didn't want to embarrass them anymore. However, Si Qianxiu and Gu Zhishang didn't want to embarrass them, but the palace master took the initiative to propose that he wanted to see the strength of the supreme masters. In Si Qianxiu's heart, perhaps this was the palace master who wanted to give himself and the core high-level members a dignified way out. By the way, he really wanted to see the realm of the masters and set a direction for his future cultivation. This was easy to handle, satisfied. Si Qianxiu would not directly make a move. Whether it was the palace master or the several core high-level members, the strongest was only the 5th or 6th grade of the human immortal. Letting her, a 5th grade Xian immortal master, go out was a bit of a fuss. Anyway, she could still control more than a dozen masters, so she sent one at random and let him accompany the palace master to the secret place of the sect to open their eyes. The real trouble was Yang Chun. Yang Chun's wives and concubines were all there. In order to ensure that Zhou Xianying could completely suppress everyone else, Si Qianxiu attached great importance to each of them. Other than the Murong sisters, who had been assisting Li Cheng recently, everyone else was assigned a Grand Supreme Mystic Immortal Expert. Except for Gao Yu and Gong Sunling, Yang Chun's wives and concubines were all from the super sect. The reason why Si Qianxiu placed so much importance on this matter was to leave a deep impression on the girls. He wanted them to understand that the sect behind them would not be able to help them in this matter. She wanted to make Yang Chun's other wives and concubines obediently accept her arrangement with a huge gap in strength that could not be made up for. Of course, Si Qianxiu and Gu Zhishang would not let Li Cheng and the Murong sisters go. Although Li Cheng could be considered the matchmaker between Yang Chun and Zhou Xianying, and Zhou Xianying was indebted to him for restoring her appearance, the coercion he used at that time had put Zhou Xianying in a difficult position. Even though he was thankful, he couldn't let the young mistress off easily since he had caused her to suffer so much. The Murong sisters should receive the same treatment as Gao Yu and Gong Sunling, each of them having a Grand Supreme Mystic Immortal Expert to deal with them. Gu Zhishang even personally came to teach Li Cheng a lesson. At most, he would give Li Cheng some benefits after the matter. After all, he had to let everyone know that the young mistress must not suffer any grievances. As for Yang Chun himself, Si Qianxiu personally went to deal with him. Everyone in Chunyang Palace knew that Yang Chun valued Gao Yu. It was impossible for Si Qianxiu not to understand. But the more it was like this, the more cautious Si Qianxiu had to be. She personally went to deal with Yang Chun so that her purpose could be achieved smoothly without Yang Chun being too stimulated, so as not to ruin the relationship between the young mistress and the young master. Zhou Xianying had already told Gao Yu about these things. Zhou Xianying didn't know that the girls were going to unseal the masters for the time being. So to Zhou Xianying's surprise, Gao Yu and the others were all eager to try. Zhou Xianying really couldn't understand why they weren't worried about this at all. Were they planning to follow Si Qianxiu's wishes? In the end, Si Qianxiu was still Zhou Xianying's person. Even though Zhou Xianying didn't have any impression of them before the wedding, Si Qianxiu and the others addressed Zhou Xianying as young mistress and were extremely respectful to her. Zhou Xianying couldn't even get away if she wanted to. Being sandwiched between the girls and Si Qianxiu, Zhou Xianying was very uncomfortable. If it weren't for Yang Chen, who had been comforting her not to worry, and that Gao Yu and the others didn't have any grudges about it, Zhou Xianying would have been ashamed. There was no other way. After Li Cheng initially refined and played with the heavenly phoenix zither, Zhou Xianying announced a short retreat to refine her own natal magic weapon. Out of sight, out of mind. Zhou Xianying's retreat did not last long. She was worried about things in her heart, especially worried that Si Qianxiu would embarrass Yang Chen, so she was restless. How could she calmly retreat? During the few days after the incident, she was even more restless. She was afraid that Si Qianxiu and the rest had gone too far, and she wouldn't be able to clean up the mess. Only when she saw Yang Chen walking in her room with a smile, as though nothing had happened, did Zhou Xianying let out a sigh of relief. She then asked Yang Chen about the outcome, and it was considered successful. However, you should go and see Granny Si and the rest first. Yang Chen didn't answer Zhou Xianying directly. Instead, he gave Zhou Xianying a big bottle of 5 Revolution Lingji Mushroom Dew pills and a bottle of 5 Revolution Appearance pill. I believe they will be very happy when they receive these appearance pills. Zhou Xianying didn't suspect anything and went straight to Si Qianxiu's residence. What made her bewildered was that Si Qianxiu actually avoided her. Not knowing what had happened, Zhou Xianying turned to Gu Zhishang's side and was also given a cold shoulder. This piqued Zhou Xianying's curiosity. She decided to visit all the supreme experts in her faction. However, the result was out of Zhou Xianying's expectations. All the supreme experts avoided her, leaving Zhou Xianying at a complete loss. Gao Yu and the others seemed to be fine. The palace master and the elders were doing what they should do, as if Si Qianxiu had never looked for them. What happened in the end? Zhou Xianying's curiosity had been picked to the highest. Yang Chen didn't say it, Gao Yu and the others didn't say it, and the palace master didn't say it either. Zhou Xianying could only ask Si Qianxiu and Gu Zhishang. After losing their temper, Si Qianxiu and the others no longer dared to refuse Zhou Xianying's request to meet. They gathered together and received the people sent by Zhou Xianying. After seeing Si Qianxiu and Gu Zhishang, Zhou Xianying was shocked. She finally understood why these people always avoided her. The originally insufferably arrogant supreme, profound, immortal masters thought that they were the pillars of the pure Yang Palace and could do whatever they wanted. Now all of them were bruised and swollen, with injuries on their bodies. None of them were intact. When they saw Zhou Xianying, they all lowered their heads guiltily. Chapter 1791. Zhou Xianying knew what Si Qianxiu and the rest were going to do, and she also knew what arrangements they had made. Basically, these supreme mystic immortal experts had to deal with one human immortal junior each. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any problems. However, what was going on in front of them? These people were considered Zhou Xianying seniors. Even if they weren't close relatives, they should be her seniors in terms of seniority. How could a supreme mystic immortal not be able to deal with a human immortal junior? One had to know that the strongest of their opponents was Tao Junkie, who was merely at the 8th stage of the human immortal realm, close to the 9th stage. Granny Si, Mr. Gu, what exactly happened? Zhou Xianying didn't have time to be shocked and asked hurriedly. Only after asking did she feel that something was wrong. So she asked, "Are your injuries serious?" "I have healing pills refined by husband." Si Qianxiu, Gu Zhishang, and the rest looked at Zhou Xianying with a face full of guilt. They had boasted in front of their young miss, yet they ended up like this. This made them speechless. It's a long story. Si Qianxiu wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Si Qianxiu didn't even have the face to say what happened when he faced Yang Chen. It was truly too embarrassing. A dignified 5th stage supreme, profound immortal expert had been injured to such an extent by a human immortal junior. How could he say that? Looking at Zhou Xianying's caring gaze, Si Qinxiu felt ashamed. Now that he thought about Yang Chen's attack, Si Qinxiu felt slightly terrified. Even when Yang Chen explained afterwards that he also had a supreme mystic immortal helping him, Si Qinxiu couldn't get over it. She actually didn't discover where the mystic immortal expert was from the start to the end. Was there anything more embarrassing than this? After explaining the purpose of their visit, Si Qinxiu was planning to teach Yang Chen a lesson, but unexpectedly, Yang Chen made the first move. He didn't know where Yang Chen found an incomparably heavy whip, but with just one whip, Si Qinxiu almost fell apart. And this was because Yang Chen had shown mercy and didn't kill him. No matter what magic treasures Si Qinxiu used, Yang Chen's whip would receive them all. After lashing Si Qinxiu tens of times, Yang Chen placed the immortal cleaving blade's blade on Si Qinxiu's neck. At that moment, Si Qinxiu still had a lingering fear when he felt the coldness from the immortal slaying saber's blade. Si Qinxiu did not doubt that if Yang Chen wanted to kill her, he would not have given her so many opportunities to use her magic treasures. In fact, when Si Qinxiu admitted defeat, he had asked the same question. Yang Chen had only tossed the black bracelet on his wrist to Si Qinxiu. With Si Qinxiu's cultivation at the 5th stage of the Xian Immortal stage, he had to use all of his cultivation to barely catch the bracelet and prevent it from falling to the ground. The terrifying weight caused Si Qinxiu to be unable to believe that Yang Chen didn't seem to be struggling at all. Was Yang Chen really a human immortal level cultivator? No matter how carefully Si Qinxiu observed, he couldn't deny this. However, who had seen a human immortal cultivator who could toss a 5th stage of the Xian Immortal stage to the point of almost losing his life? Under this result, how could Si Qinxiu say those words that she wanted to force Yang Chen? The world of cultivators was the same. Si Qinxiu could only dejectedly cover her bruised and swollen old face and return to her residence. She originally thought that her side was defeated by Yang Chen and the others might be a little better. However, when she saw that Gu Zhishang and the others were even more miserable than her, she could no longer suppress her curiosity and asked. The master who gave lessons to the head of the palace and the elders met Old Bug. Old Bug, who had swallowed Yang Chen's yin-yang heaven-burning fire, directly wrapped the other party into a big cocoon, devouring magic treasures, spiritual power, and spiritual awareness. The Xian Immortal Master lost almost half of his life and was carried back by several elders. The masters who were preparing to use force to persuade Gao Yu, Gong Sunling, Shi Shanshan, Sun Qingxue, Tao Junqi, and Shi Wushuang encountered a combination of a human immortal junior and a supreme Xian Immortal Master. Originally, the Xian Immortal Master was already difficult to deal with and even fell into a disadvantage, but the human Immortal Junior was unexpectedly fierce. Gao Yu's water and fire dual flying sword, coupled with 100 spirits battle armor, was both offensive and defensive. The Emperor's aura exuded from her body, made the opponent unable to fully exert his strength, and was crazily suppressed by the butterfly demon. Gong Sunling's Mountain River geographical map directly and easily brought the two masters who were fighting to the illusory world. In addition to the rhinoceros demon, who could not be beaten by the Xian Immortal level, at least thousands of human immortal level cultivators were watching and eager to try, making people almost crazy. Shi Shanshan's opponent was the most unlucky. A huge old turtle could block almost all the attacks, and the spirit power was long to the point of no return. Shi Shanshan next to him directly solved the problem with a supreme pure yang sword chi. If it wasn't for Yang Chen saying to be merciful, I am afraid that his life would not be saved on the spot. Sun Qingxue got a small spider on this unsealing trip, which was very inconspicuous on Sun Qingxue's blood-sucking demon vine. But as soon as the attack was launched, the overwhelming spider web tightly entangled the opponent, and the black poison was so thick that it almost corroded everything. In the end, the opponent was only lucky to break a few bones and was able to escape. Tao Junqi's scene was the most spectacular, a huge whale that was who knows how many times bigger than Jing, who swallowed the opponent in one gulp. together with Tao Junki's pure Een fire. It was simply impossible to defend against. In the end, the opponent left with a body charred black. His miserable appearance even made people wonder if he had been burnt. Sure, Wushuang's movements were relatively quiet, but a huge white tiger roared and attacked the opponent's divine sense repeatedly. The opponent paid the price of a heavy divine sense injury to be able to return to Si Qinxiu. In terms of combat power, the Murong sisters should be the weakest. They did not have a supreme mystic immortal to protect them, and with their human immortal level strength and the 5 elements formation, even with the 5 elements hook natal magic treasure that Yangchen gave them, they could not compete with a supreme mystic immortal. Moreover, Si Qinxiu's arrangement was that each of them had a supreme mystic immortal, so the Murong sisters were not a match for 5 supreme mystic immortals. If this went smoothly, it would be fine, but the problem was that the Murong sisters had recently been helping Li Cheng. When the miserable Gu Zhishang led the 5 supreme mystic immortals to face Li Cheng and the Murong sisters, it was inevitable that a sad and helpless scene was played out again. The 6 supreme mystic immortals were beaten up by Li Cheng alone, and in the end, the Murong sisters could not stand it anymore. So they used the 5 elements hook to pull them out of the battle circle and persuaded brother Li Cheng to stop. Chapter 1792. At the thought of these things, the participating supreme experts were full of blood and tears. After all, there was no place for him to reason with. For a dignified Grand Supreme profound immortal expert to deal with a human immortal junior, this was already bullying the weak to the extreme. If he failed and went to find someone to judge the situation, didn't he feel that he had lost enough face? If it was an ordinary injury, with the strength of the supreme experts and the necessary medicinal pills, it would definitely be healed very quickly. Unfortunately, except for Si Qinxiu, who was given some face by Yang Chun, the others all carried serious injuries that could not be removed in a short time. When Zhou Xianying saw everyone, it was basically the most embarrassing moment for them. In the face of the young lady they were loyal to, they could not do what they boasted about. These supreme experts could not help but lower their once proud heads. Now, these supreme experts found that they were not indispensable in Chunyang Palace, let alone the so-called pillars. They joined tens of thousands of people with great fanfare, only to strengthen the momentum of Chunyang Palace. The internal strength of the other party had long been equal to, or even surpassed them. Otherwise, the few of them wouldn't be covered in injuries. No wonder none of those who attacked Chunyang Palace came out alive, and there was even a supreme mystic immortal expert among them. Many cultivators outside thought that Chunyang Palace was lucky, but at that time, the great elder and a supreme elder of Enyang Demon School rushed to Chunyang Palace. After this time, Si Qinxiu and the others would not think so. Enyang Demon School came from the demonic sect. How could they suddenly be so righteous? At such a moment, they actually did not take advantage of the situation, making outsiders think that the relationship between Enyang Demon School and Chunyang Palace was very good and harmonious. Now Si Qinxiu and the others understood that this was absolutely nonsense. Without the strength to back them up, it would be a joke if the people of Enyang Demon School did not take the opportunity to swallow the whole Chunyang Palace. If it weren't for Chunyang Palace's strength that made them fearful, would the great elder and great elder of Enyang Demon School be so cooperative? If it were Si Qinxiu and the others, they would not have been so easily dismissed, right? Zhou Xianying finally understood why Yang Chun was so calm and unafraid of Mr. Si Pagu's schemes. It turned out that there was such a hidden force. Zhou Xianying didn't look too good when Granny Si and the rest returned in defeat, but she let out a huge sigh of relief in her heart. At least after this, Granny Si and the rest would be able to recognize the situation and wouldn't do anything inappropriate again. Chunyang Palace would also take this chance to subdue Granny Si and the rest. I know all of you want the best for me. I'm living a very blissful life now. Actually, Granny Si, you guys don't have to fight for these things for me at all. Zhou Xianying comforted the predecessors, and, at the same time, she did not forget to take out the medicinal pills given by Yang Chun. Everyone who was injured took one. My husband is very good to me, and several sisters are also very harmonious. Why do you have to destroy my hard-won happiness? Zhou Xianying said it very casually, but in the ears of Si Qianxiu and the rest, it was no less than a clap of thunder. In particular, the phrase hard-won happiness moved them even more. These people were all protecting Zhou Xianying in the dark. When she was Granny Tianqin, Zhou Xianying could be said to have suffered a lot of supercilious looks. Sometimes they could empathize with that kind of grievance. If it wasn't for Li Chang guiding her to find Yang Chun, she would probably still be a lonely old woman. How could she be like this, a fairy brimming with happiness? It wasn't an exaggeration to say that this kind of happiness didn't come easily. It was us who acted on our own and implicated young miss. Si Qianxiu finally realized his mistake and hurriedly apologized to Zhou Xianying. The others didn't dare to delay and followed suit. It's fine. Husband and the sisters are all magnanimous people, so no one cares about this. Zhou Xianying smiled and said, as a matter of fact, husband has also prepared a 5th transformation appearance pill for everyone. In the future, I can't call you Granny C anymore. I can only call you Sister C. After slapping someone, she gave a carrot. This was the most basic method of governing, and Zhou Xianying also used it to perfection. Just these few sentences made everyone feel guilty for the trouble that their young miss had caused. They also felt grateful that their young miss had magnanimously forgiven them. They also understood from Zhou Xianying that she was very dissatisfied with her current life. She even bought good things for her husband without batting an eyelid. Then, she called Sister C and completely turned Si Qianxiu into her most resolute supporter. After everyone experienced this time, they were also completely convinced by Chunyang Palace. They began to slowly obey the instructions of Palace Master Zhang Jiao and truly integrated into Chunyang Palace bit by bit. After the real contact, those newly joined outer sect disciples discovered how terrifying the resources of the seemingly inconspicuous pure Yang Palace were. Yang Chun had a few spirit veins of heaven immortal level. Tens of thousands of disciples could use them to cultivate at will and didn't need to consider anything else. Compared with the bitter days of being a rogue cultivator before, it was simply incomparable. All kinds of techniques, materials, medicinal pills, and magical treasures. Chunyang Palace could almost be said to have everything, and this didn't include the Wanbao Tower that was almost everywhere in the market. The resources needed for cultivation were almost all in the sect. As long as they did their best to work for the sect and get contribution to the sect, they could completely exchange for it. Just these two had already made tens of thousands of outer sect disciples feel much better than before. Coupled with the precious medicinal pills in the hands of Yang Chun and the perching spirit jade, which were good things that could only be encountered but not sought, becoming an inner sect disciple of Chunyang Palace had become the goal of these outer sect disciples. The cohesion of the sect was constantly rising. The Supreme Masters were convinced and honestly integrated into the sect. At this time, Chunyang Palace really entered the fast lane of development, and the strength of the sect was getting stronger day by day. In the past, they had to rely on the breadth of the major sect. Now they only relied on their own strength, and few sect dared to bully them. Yang Chen's request to the major sect to give the disciples of Chunyang Palace the qualification to enter the trial site for the trial had also become a benefit for these new disciples. With this kind of opportunity to stand on the same starting line as the super sect, it was 10,000 times better than a rogue cultivator. This was considered to have stabilized the interior of the sect. At this time, Yang Chun could finally consider taking his wives and concubines to enter the trial site for the trial. Of course, the trial was one purpose. The other purpose was to find out the arrangement of the Zhao family in the trial site and completely destroy the Zhao family's painstaking efforts. However, for Yang Chun, there was another goal. According to Li Cheng's guess, the trial site should be regarded as the eye of the formation, and the formation eye of the formation of this level was likely to be something even more amazing. Chapter 1793. Are you really worried about Granny C and Mr. Gu? On the way to the trial ground together, Zhou Xianying asked Yang Chun with some worry. The sudden appearance of Si Qianxiu and Gu Zhishang and the huge force they brought out not only worried the head of the palace, but also Zhou Xianying. Before they appeared, Zhou Xianying had always lived a life of struggle alone. Even Granny Tianxin's fierce reputation had been built up by her alone. She never thought that a person like her, who was almost like a jinx, would have a big force behind her that only served her alone. Although so far, Si Qianxiu and Gu Zhishang had always shown respect and obedience to Zhou Xianying still couldn't adapt. To put it seriously, she still didn't dare to fully believe them. This kind of worry couldn't be confided to others. She could only show a little bit to her husband, but she didn't say it directly. Instead, she asked Yang Chun, "What are you worried about?" Yang Chun asked with a smile, "Are you afraid that they will harm Chunyang Palace? Or harm you? What if it's against Chunyang Palace?" Zhou Xianying asked. She thanked Shi Shanshan, who had just poured her a cup of tea. "At least they don't dare yet." Yang Chun picked up the teacup handed over by Shi Shanshan and took a sip, feeling the lingering taste of the tea in his mouth, and said with a smile, Si Qianxiu and a dozen other supreme mystic immortal masters went out, but they all returned in defeat. At least with this show of strength, they could understand that the hidden power of Chunyang Palace was not something they could completely suppress. Under the premise of the huge benefits given by Chunyang Palace, they still had to consider for Zhou Xianying. It was not good for them to be unfavorable to Chunyang Palace. Of course, what really made Si Qianxiu and Gu Zhishang completely convinced was not only the powerful strength, but also another reason. It was very simple to say. Yang Chun just showed the merit ring on his finger when he, Si Qianxiu, and Gu Zhishang were alone. The merit ring was the symbol of the heavenly court. Having a merit ring meant that the wearer had an official position in the heavenly court. Although there were many people in the immortal realm, only 1 or 2 out of 1,000 people were qualified to serve in the heavenly court. The immortal world needed merit, and only the cultivators serving in the heavenly court would use merit rings to record it. The other cultivators would use other magic treasures. Thus, when Yang Chen's merit ring lit up, Si Qianxiu and Gu Zhishang's eyes were glued to it. The two of them were ordered by their master to secretly take care of Zhou Xianying, so they naturally knew more than others. It was not surprising that they could recognize the merit ring. The fact that a minor human immortal junior like Yang Chun could possess a merit ring truly shocked the two of them. After all, Yang Chun was in Chunyang Palace. It could be said that he had no foundation in the spiritual realm, but he could have a merit ring at this time. What did this mean? As long as they thought about it, they could think of many horrifying truths. Why could Yang Chun become a 5th-grade alchemist master in the mortal world? Why was he able to obtain such a large territory as soon as he arrived in the spirit realm? Why was he able to obtain the protection of the various major sects? Why did he always have pill formulas that others had never had before? Why did he have so many supreme expert bodyguards by his side? He could almost immediately get the answer from his merit ring. After realizing this, Si Qianxiu and Gu Zhishang secretly wiped off the cold sweat on their foreheads. At best, they got a hint from their master to protect Zhou Xianying, and when they reached the immortal world, they could find a place in the heavenly court. However, Yang Chun already had a merit ring, which they did not know how much stronger he was than them. They couldn't beat him in terms of strength, and they couldn't compare with him in terms of identity. How could they dare to have any other ideas? Anyway, Yang Chun was also Zhou Xianying's husband. Speaking of it, he could be regarded as the son-in-law that they had to be indirectly loyal to. It was not unacceptable to obey him. Moreover, Zhou Xianying's seal, as far as they knew, even a golden immortal might not be able to solve it. Yang Chun, a little human immortal, could easily solve it. This had explained many problems. Looking at the current situation, as long as they could manage and protect Chunyang Palace well, it would be a great credit. Didn't they see that Zhou Xianying had also joined Chunyang Palace? With the protection of this obvious force, coupled with the influence of Yang Chun, Zhou Xianying's safety should be more guaranteed. Because of the stimulation of Yang Chen's merit ring, Si Qianxiu and Gu Zhishang were now almost desperate to help Chunyang Palace to a higher level. Everyone knew the status of Yang Chun in Chunyang Palace. This was a good job to manage the young lady and son-in-law. Whoever dared not to work hard would be the enemy of the two. Si Qinxiu and Gu Zhishang, who had recovered their youthful looks under Yang Chen's fifth cycle appearance pill, wanted to show their loyalty to Yang Chun before Yang Chun left. In this case, how could Yang Chun still worry that Si Qinxiu and Gu Zhishang would play tricks? As long as he and brotherly Cheng had always been in close contact, even if they overturned the sky, Yang Chun was not afraid. Of course, Yang Chun would not say much to Zhou Xianying, especially about the merit ring. Therefore, Yang Chun just smiled and said, "They are all your people. I don't trust others, but do I not trust you?" These words made Zhou Xianying feel very sweet in her heart. When she was with Granny Tianqin, Zhou Xianying had never heard anyone talk to her like this. This feeling was really not an ordinary kind of happiness. For this trip, half of the core elders of Chunyang Palace, plus Ho Yun, old tree monster Shi Kuei, Xie Sha, and others, then there was Fatty Jing and Yang Chen's family. The team was not big, but it was definitely not small. Everyone went straight to the entrance of the trial ground together. The new members of Chunyang Palace were just outer disciples. They had not yet reached the point where they could enjoy the benefits of the official disciples of Chunyang Palace. However, the level of Si Qinxiu and Gu Zhishang, as well as the fairy Immortal masters, all knew the news of the trial ground. Almost all of their eyes were shining. The trial ground of each major sect was definitely a good place. Therefore, after knowing this, those people immediately began to urge their disciples or subordinates to do their best for Chunyang Palace. The earlier they became an official disciple of Chunyang Palace, the earlier they could enjoy the benefits of an official disciple. It should be known that Chunyang Palace was just the part that they knew. Even if there was no trial ground, the rest was also coveted. Such a good sect was just the right time to join when they needed to expand their strength the most. Only a fool would not seize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and those who could cultivate to this point were almost no fools. Chapter 1794. Allowing the disciples of Chunyang Palace to enter the trial ground was the consensus of all the major sect guarding the trial ground. Therefore, the disciple on duty here did not hesitate at all. After verifying everyone's identity, he let them enter the trial ground. As soon as they came out of the protective formation, everyone felt the difference here. The spiritual power in the air was at least 50% richer than outside, and it was even richer than the sect's mountain gate, which had a spiritual vein. This alone surprised everyone, including Yang Chun. They knew that the trial ground was very good, but it was beyond everyone's expectations that the spiritual power could be so rich. This kind of spiritual power concentration among the people, only Yang Chen's family had felt stronger than this in the Dragon Palace, and other places have never had it. Even Fatty Jing's conch underwater mansion might not have as much spiritual power as here. How many fairy, immortal, spiritual veins would it take to support this? Fatty Jing just took a breath and began to sigh. Damn, when can we get all of them? How good would that be? He was a fairy immortal expert. Apart from the secret Grand Supreme Shin Immortals around everyone, he was the only one with the highest cultivation and the oldest seniority here. However, when he said such hooligan words, everyone couldn't help but smile speechlessly. Under the watchful eyes of the major sect, only Fatty Jing, who had never been in contact with the outside world, would have such an idea. It's unlikely to get it, but after a while, you won't think so. Yang Chun smiled and gave a sentence that everyone was puzzled. No one understood what Yang Chun meant by this. Even Gao Yu Gong Sunling, who knew Yang Chun the best, didn't understand, let alone others. However, everyone knew that Yang Chun had always been far-sighted. He naturally had his reasons for saying this, so no one said much. As long as they did what Yang Chun said, they would always get great benefits in the end. After so many years, everyone was used to it. Everyone basically understands the situation here. It should be time for us to part ways. Yang Chun didn't explain and directly said to everyone, "We are here to gain experience and to make ourselves stronger, so we must cherish this opportunity. During training, it was definitely not suitable for everyone to gather together. Although it was good for group cooperation, it was not very helpful for individual development. The purpose of the trial was to improve one's strength. No one would waste such a precious opportunity on teamwork. Separation was inevitable. According to the plan, not only would Yang Chen's family be separated from the members of the sect, but even Yang Chen's family would be separated. Everyone would have to act alone. Perhaps the only exception was the Murong sisters. They always worked together, and even Yang Chen was no exception. Remember, it's very dangerous here. Don't have any soft-hearted or hesitation. Otherwise, you'll die. No one will shed tears for the failure of the experience. Remember, although Yang Chen had already said this to everyone before entering the trial, Yang Chen still didn't forget to say it again at this time. People like Gao Yugong Sunling, Shi Shanshan, Sun Qingxue, and Shi Kuei, Xie Sha, Ho Yun, and the old tree demon who had participated in the demon continent's experience were okay. Others might not have that kind of experience of surviving under danger all the time. Yang Chen didn't want to lose anyone here, so it was necessary to remind them no matter how many times it was necessary. It must be known that even a genius like Shi Shanshan in his previous life was seriously injured in the trial because of carelessness, and it took hundreds of years to recover. Yang Chen didn't know how many times he had said these words, but he was still afraid that someone wouldn't pay enough attention to it, so he kept repeating it. "Let's go." Fatty Jing took the lead to leave. His figure flashed, and he had disappeared in place. His voice still sounded here. I don't know how many times these words have been said. Even if you aren't tired of it, we are tired of listening. With Fatty Jing taking the lead, everyone chose a direction in twos and threes and left. In the end, only Yang Chen's family was left. The girls looked at Yang Chen, and after saying goodbye to Yang Chen, they left separately. Yang Chen wasn't worried about the girls at all. Not to mention anything else, almost everyone had a supreme, mystic immortal bodyguard beside them, and their safety was not a problem. Even if Zhou Xianying and the Murong sisters didn't. Zhou Xianying was also a fairy immortal, and the heavenly phoenix zither that Li Cheng had re-refined, her strength had definitely improved a lot. With the cooperation of the 5 Murong sisters, as long as they didn't make a collective mistake, there would be no problem with Yang Chen's healing elixir. In the blink of an eye, Yang Chen became alone. Looking at the empty side, Yang Chen seemed to be a little unused to it all of a sudden. After all, anyone would feel the same when they were surrounded by beauties and suddenly became alone. For Yang Chen, the trial was actually not very meaningful. What Yang Chen valued was that he could enter the trial ground this time and discover the secret of the Zhao family's array formation. Therefore, he didn't directly look for a suitable place for him to train like the others. Instead, he went directly to the core position of the trial ground, which was also the area that was most likely to be the core of the Zhao family's array formation. However, after flying for less than a few hundred miles, Yang Chen changed his mind. He saw a very strange array formation on the way. The array formation didn't have any offensive or defensive properties. To be precise, this array formation only emitted a unique spiritual power fluctuation that could be felt by certain people. Coincidentally, Yang Chen was one of the people who could feel the fluctuations of the array formation. Moreover, he didn't directly sense it in the direction he was going. Instead, the power of the array ensured that he could feel it within a radius of thousands of miles. He was attracted to this place by this array. In addition to seeing the hidden formation, Yang Chen saw another sign pointing the way. At the moment, there was no hesitation. He directly followed the direction of the sign, turned a few turns in a row, and, after rushing out for thousands of miles, he came to the edge of another hidden formation. Seeing this formation, Yang Chen's face showed a smile. The mysterious Heaven Sect's unique method of communication was still useful here. Without saying anything, Yang Chen followed the method he had agreed with Elder Li and directly entered the array. Then, Yang Chen's figure disappeared without a trace, as if he had never been there. After a flash, Yang Chen saw the scene inside the array. What surprised Yang Chen was that he originally thought he would only see Elder Li. He didn't expect there to be 3 people in front of him. In addition to Elder Li, Sect Master Wang of the Mysterious Heaven Sect and Hall Master Lu of the Law Enforcement Hall were also there. Chapter 1795. Grandmaster, Sect Master, Hall Master. Yang Chun bowed to the three core higher-ups of the Black Heaven Sect. The other party appeared here, without asking. It must be related to the recent skyrocketing strength of the Pure Yang Palace. As expected, the first thing Elder Li asked when he came up was this matter. Why did Chunyang Palace suddenly increase by so many experts recently? I heard that there are even Grand Supreme Mystic Immortals. Elder Li and Yang Chen's relationship was not ordinary. When he asked, he had no scruples and was straightforward. There seemed to be a little nervousness in his voice. That's because of my newlywed wife, Fairy Soft Sound. Yang Chun answered honestly. Aing doesn't know herself, but those people said that they were ordered to protect her. Fairy Soft Sound's name had now replaced Granny Tianqin's, but Yang Chun believed that although the Black Heaven Sect did not directly ask Yang Chun, they must have done a lot of research behind the scenes. Such a big matter, especially when it involved Chunyang Palace, the future core of cultivation. The Black Heaven Sect would not ignore it. Do you know what kind of background Fairy Soft Sound has? Elder Li was now the main interrogator. He asked all the questions while Sect Master Wang and Hall Master Lu listened. I'm not very clear about the specific background, but I'm sure that it must be related to the heavenly court above. Yang Chun lied this time. Of course, it was not a complete lie. He was just holding back. As he spoke, Yang Chun also had a curious expression on his face. Ying's surname is Zhou. Is there any important person with the surname Zhou in the heavenly court? It was extremely difficult to directly send a message from the immortal realm to the mortal realm across two realms. Therefore, even if a consciousness clone could send a message, it would only be one or two key messages. However, the spiritual realm and the immortal realm were only separated by one realm. Relatively speaking, they could obtain more information. Especially a big sect like the Black Heaven Sect, they must know a lot of things above. After being reminded by Yang Chen's question, the three also began to recall which important person with the surname Zhou in their memories. However, for the time being, they did not have too many clues. After all, it was a matter of the upper realm. Even if the lower realm knew a little about it, it would be extremely limited. In fact, they had already guessed this possibility, and they had talked about this when they met beforehand. What Yang Chun said was just something that they had discussed without any results, so it was nothing new. The reason why they were so cooperative was because they cared about Yang Chen's identity. With the current situation, is Chunyang Palace still under your control? After asking a few questions that could be guessed, Elder Li finally got to the point. Whether Yang Chun could control Chunyang Palace or not was the key to the revival of Xiantian's sect in the future. This question naturally had to be asked clearly. I am Ying's husband now. They all listened to Ying. Yang Chun didn't answer directly, but used Zhou Xianying's name as an excuse. In other words, those experts listened to Zhou Xianying, and Zhou Xianying listened to him. Fairy Soft Sound was originally an old woman without any salt. It was said that someone from above placed a seal on her. Were you the one who broke it? Elder Li continued to ask, as if he wouldn't stop until he got to the bottom of this. It's like this. Yang Chun nodded and admitted, it was a very strong seal. I spent a lot of effort to barely break it. The reason why he said this was because it wasn't easy to hide Zhou Xianying's seal. When Zhou Xianying was with Granny Tianqin, she didn't just ask Yang Chun to try. Some other experts also tried, but no one could find out that it was a seal. If Xiantian's sect wanted to inquire about these things, they definitely wouldn't be able to escape their eyes and ears. There was no point in hiding it. Before, Granny Tianqin looked for an alchemist from Xiantian's sect and 2 experts from Pill Cauldron sect, but they couldn't see that it was a seal. Hall Master Lu, who was next to him, took over the conversation and asked with a pleasant expression, they are all heaven immortal experts. Even heaven immortals couldn't see through it. Yang Chun, how did you see through it? Yang Chen's heart sank, but he didn't show any surprise on his face as he calmly explained, I usually like to read some miscellaneous books, so I know a bit more. With Hall Master Lu's question, how could Yang Chun not know that Hall Master Lu was already suspicious of Yang Chun. However, he didn't know what Hall Master Lu and the others were suspecting, so Yang Chun couldn't decide how to deal with it. Should he directly kill the three of them? Although the three of them were all heaven immortal experts, Yang Chun believed that with the help of the Earth Dragon and himself, it shouldn't be a problem. However, once he made a move, the previous arrangements would be destroyed. Chunyang Palace would directly stand on the opposite side of Shantian's sect and suffer a naked attack. Even though Chunyang Palace's strength had greatly increased, this was not a situation that Yang Chun wanted to see. In the spiritual world of the mortal world, what other miscellaneous books can record the matters of the heavenly court? Hall Master Lu still had the same smile on his face, but Yang Chun no longer looked amiable. Instead, there was a hidden dagger in his smile. This kind of seal is definitely something that can only be performed by a golden immortal or even a zenith heaven golden immortal. Could it be that there are other miscellaneous books that can record the cultivation methods of the immortal world? This was a huge flaw. If Yang Chun couldn't explain it clearly, everything in the past would come to nothing, and he would have no choice but to make a move. This disciple doesn't understand what Hall Master Lu means. Yang Chun didn't answer, but asked with a puzzled expression. According to our investigation, the mountain gate of the Taishaman in the mortal world was bombed once. Later, we found out that the reason was that there was a problem with the welcoming array of the sect, causing the mountain gate to be blown up. Hall Master Lu said with a smile, "However, we have asked the disciples who ascended during that time. The sect did not get any news from above. It is likely that someone has intercepted the news and knew something about the sect and the immortal world in advance." While Hall Master Lu was talking, Yang Chun didn't move at all. He stood quietly in the same place, weighing in his heart. Sect Master Wang and elderly stared at Yang Chun without blinking, as if they wanted to find some flaws in him. The mountain gate of the Chunyang Palace in the mortal world was also destroyed once, and then the mountain gate of the Taishaman was inexplicably destroyed. Even the news that was to be passed down could not be passed down. Hall Master Lu's eyes flashed, and suddenly there was a layer of pressure. He went straight to Yang Chun and asked, "Later, when we investigated the Chunyang Palace, a group of elders of the Taishaman inexplicably lost their natal magic weapons. How do you explain this?" "Those things were arranged by Master Li to be sent to the Chunyang Palace." When Yang Chun heard this, he already had a plan in his heart. He quickly replied. At that time, this disciple had already entered the sect of Master Li. However, the news we got from Yang Lan's mouth is not like this. Hall Master Lu's eyes narrowed, and he looked at Yang Chun and asked slowly. Chapter 1796. Yang Lan was now worse than dead, but he couldn't die yet. The disciples of the law enforcement hall of the Shantian sect were asking Yang Lan about something almost all the time. When Yang Lan had collapsed, they could get a lot of news that they couldn't get on normal days. For example, Yang Lan said that he was ordered to instigate Yang Chun after the destruction of the Taishaman, not before. However, Yang Chun just said that at that time, he had already become a disciple of Sect Master Li and became a disciple of the Taishaman. Obviously, this was contradictory, and the higher-ups of the Shantian sect had to be more careful. In this situation, it was impossible for Yang Lan to lie even if he wanted to. Was Yang Chun lying? Yang Chun now understood why Elder Li's face was nervous at the beginning. His relationship with Elder Li was very special, so Elder Li was the most worried about him and the person who didn't want anything to happen to Yang Chun. After confirming that the three higher-ups of the Shantian sect had doubts about Yang Chun because of this, Yang Chun's heart immediately settled down. This problem was too easy to solve. In fact, the time when this disciple joined the Taishaman was much earlier than Yang Lan imagined. Yang Chun replied with a smile, not showing any nervousness at all. Even before the destruction of the Chunyang Palace, I had already become a disciple of Master Li. Why? Hall Master Lu immediately asked, pressing him step by step. Because there is a future in joining the Taishaman. Yang Chun replied without hesitation. The Taishaman is not only the largest sect in the mortal world, but the Shantian sect in the immortal world is in charge of the heavenly court. It's not that this disciple is presumptuous, but how would the elders choose? How do you know that the Shantian sect is in charge of the heavenly court. Sect Master Wang's eyes lit up, and Hall Master Lu's breathing also began to quicken. Did the envoy from the immortal world tell you? This disciple is not very clear about the envoy, but this disciple has other sources of information. Yang Chun directly denied it and snickered in his heart. It was ridiculous to want to overthrow him with a time difference. You mean you knew that the Xintian sect was in charge of the heavenly court earlier than Sect Master Li of the Taishaman? Hall Master Lu's voice trembled a little. It was impossible to see that he was a fairy immortal master. It was not surprising to think about it. Even a big sect like the Greatest Heaven sect couldn't get the news. Yang Chun, a small disciple of the younger generation, knew it earlier, which was simply too shocking. Although Hall Master Lu didn't pursue the matter, whether it was Sect Leader Wang or Elder Li's faces, they already had the intention to ask. All that was left was for Hall Master Lu to say the words. Yang Chun didn't say much, just raised his left hand. Yang TT. Yang Chun S was Yun. Yang say anything. Chen's sect disciples, Lan Yang. Lan just raised Yang. However, Yang Chun just raised his hand and didn't move. This filled the three people with doubts. What was Yang Chun trying to do? After hanging the appetite of the three people, Yang Chun controlled it and revealed the merit ring. This was the second time that Yang Chun had shown the merit ring in recent times, and it was also the fourth time that the merit ring had appeared. The first time was for Wu Xiong, the second time was for Big Brother Li Cheng, the third time was for Si Qinxiu and Gu Zhishang, and this was the fourth time. The moment the merit ring appeared, the expressions of the three upper echelons of the Xintian sect changed. As the core members of the Xintian sect, they must know some things that others didn't. The merit ring was one of them. How do you have the merit ring? Elderly cried out. He didn't look like a fairy immortal master at all. Although Sect Master Wang and Division Master Lu didn't say anything, it was obvious that they were about to hand it over. They were just a step slower than Elderly. This is disciples, Yang Chun replied calmly. Disciple already had this merit ring when I was in the mortal world. How is this possible in the mortal world? Sect Master Wang finally broke his silence and cried out in surprise. The three of them fell into a state of hysteria. It was as if they had seen the Jade Emperor being beheaded. Wait, before you started cultivating, you were an executioner? Elder Li and Yang Chun had a close relationship, so he thought about it the most. While he was shocked, a light suddenly flashed in his mind, and he shouted out the most crucial words. The moment the words executioner came out, Sect Master Wang and Division Master Lu's heads felt like someone had smashed open a large hole and poured a large amount of things in. Many things immediately became clear. There was only one way to have a merit ring in the mortal world, and that was the immortal beheading stage. Yang Chun himself was an executioner, and he also had a merit ring. It was almost 100% certain that he was the executioner of the immortal beheading stage. If it was an ordinary cultivator from the spiritual world, they wouldn't be able to figure this out at all. Not to mention not knowing what a merit ring was. Even if they knew, they wouldn't understand the effect of the immortal beheading stage. Si Qinxiu and Gu Zhishang were like this. Only the three masters in front of them, the three core members of the mysterious heaven sect, knew a little bit of the secret. And this was a secret among secrets. They didn't dare to let anyone know about it. Why did Yang Chun know that the mysterious heaven sect was in charge of the heavenly court? Why did he know many top secret pill recipes? Why could he become a fifth-grade alchemist in the mortal world? And why could he unlock the seal of a great principal golden immortal? Everything was explained. There was even no need for Yang Chun to say anything more. The three of them would naturally imagine the process for Yang Chun. It must be because Yang Chun knew in advance that the mysterious heaven sect was in charge of the heavenly court, so he secretly joined the Taishaman. This was not surprising. There was no need to doubt everything they had suspected before. Why did those seniors tell you this? Division Master Lu was shocked and couldn't help but feel a little strange. Although he no longer doubted Yang Chen's origin, he was still curious. They don't care about life and death anymore. Why would they tell you this? Anyway, they don't care about life and death anymore. What's wrong with chatting with their disciples for a few more days? Yang Chun replied with a smile. Besides, when they really face death, some people will still be shaken. Human nature was like this. As the head of the law enforcement hall, Division Master Liu didn't know how many cultivators who claimed to be unafraid of death were really ugly in the face of death. He could completely understand what Yang Chen said. Have you told others your identity before? Elderly was the happiest one now. There was no problem with Yang Chen's identity, and the strength of Chunyang Palace had greatly increased. This was simply his lucky star. While he was happy, he couldn't help but ask with concern. I only showed it to the two stewards who recently joined Chunyang Palace. They didn't dare to say anything and obediently worked for the disciples. Yang Chen said with a smile. Chapter 1797. This sentence completely filled in the reason why Yang Chen could control Chunyang Palace that he had not said just now. It also made the hearts of Sect Master Wang and the other two people directly thrown to heaven happily, and then calmly fell back into their stomachs. Was there any need to worry that Chunyang Palace could not be controlled? Yang Chen alone could easily crush two supreme mystic immortal masters with the identity of the heavenly court. Chunyang Palace was definitely a sect controlled by Yang Chen. If Yang Chen was willing, it was estimated that even the palace master had a look at Yang Chen's face. Didn't you tell Master Li? Sect Master Wang asked very strangely. No. Yang Chen shook his head. Why is that? Sect Master Wang asked. If this disciple casually revealed it at that time, it is estimated that I would not be alive now. Yang Chen smiled bitterly and then said, if it weren't for the doubts of several elders this time, and it was Sect Master Liu and Elderly together, this disciple would not dare to say it. As a core senior member of the Shintian sect, to be able to sit in this position, it was not known what kind of bloody storm he had experienced in secret to sit safely. The three people did not need Yang Chen to say more. They could understand what Yang Chen was worried about. If he was allowed to reveal his identity in the mortal world, it was completely conceivable that Yang Chen, who was in the Foundation Establishment stage, Jindan stage, Yuanying stage, and even the Deshang stage, would have been killed by some evil or greedy guys. How could he ascend to the spiritual world? As Yang Chen said, Sect Master Wang, Home Master Liu, and Elderly were also people on the same line. Yang Chen dared to reveal his identity in front of the three of them because he had a close relationship with Elderly. Moreover, Yang Chen himself controlled Chunyang Palace, which was of great benefit to the three of them. If the other core executives knew about this, it would not be good news for Yang Chen. Yang Chen's identity, out of his mouth, into the ears of the three of us, no more. Sect Master Wang did not say anything. Directly in front of Yang Chen ordered, we will follow Sect Master's orders. Hall Master Liu and Elderly solemnly bowed and promised. They were extremely serious. Thank you, Sect Leader. Of course, Yang Chen also had to be aware of the current situation and properly express his gratitude. Otherwise, wouldn't it be disrespectful to the elders? For a time, the storm caused by Yang Lan's words subsided, and everyone was happy. Sect Leader Wang, Sect Leader Liu, and Elderly looked forward to the day when Chunyang Palace could grow stronger and stronger. They were full of hope for the future of Shintian sect. Even if there were a lot of doubts in their hearts, the identity of these three people was really not suitable for them to disappear for a long time. It was not suitable for them to appear in the trial ground for a long time. Even if there were more curiosity in their hearts, they could only put it down. The purpose of the three people's arrival seemed to be to clear up this doubt. There was nothing else. After a few simple words to Yang Chen, the three people left secretly. After all, this was the trial ground. The secret arrival of the three core executives of Shintian sect was not known by anyone except Yang Chen. They did not want to expose the whereabouts of the executives here. Yang Chen naturally didn't care. After respectfully sending the three elders away, Yang Chen waited for a while and left in another direction. So far, this was still the periphery of the trial ground, and he had not encountered anyone who needed to make a move. After flying for a short distance, Yang Chen saw another mark. He smiled in his heart and changed his direction with the mark. 2 days later, he arrived at another destination. Master Ancestor. After Yang Chen entered another hidden formation, he saw Elderly, who had been waiting for him for 2 days. Elderly stayed to wait for Yang Chun. He was not surprised at all. With so much curiosity unsatisfied, Sect Master Wang and Hall Chief Lu were probably unwilling when they left. Good, good. There were no outsiders, so Elderly was not stingy with his praise. So there was such a secret. We were worried that Chunyang Palace would have to hide for a long time. Now it's all good. You did a good job. After the praise, Elderly became a curious baby and began to ask Yang Chun what he knew in the Immortal Executioner's platform. From this point, it could be seen that Big Brother Li Chung knew that Yang Chun came out of the Immortal Executioner's platform, but he didn't ask any more questions. Elderly obviously represented Sect Master Wang and Hall Chief Lu. The temperament of the three of them was much worse than Li Cheng's. Yang Chun selectively said some things. At most, he only touched on the level of heavenly soldiers. Yang Chun didn't say much about the real big shots. This was normal. At the level of heavenly generals, even in the face of death, it was impossible for them to lose their composure and get entangled with a mortal. It was normal that Yang Chun didn't know about those people. But even so, it was enough to surprise Elderly. With Elderly's identity, he had only come into contact with the consciousness of the clone that descended from above, and he didn't talk about it in detail. How could he talk about it? As vividly as Yang Chun did. What you did in the past was right. You can't let more people know about this kind of thing. Otherwise, it will be a disaster for you. After hearing some gossip from the Heavenly Court's small soldiers, Elderly was already completely sure of Yang Chun's previous actions. Especially after Yang Chun indirectly pointed out Elder Li's cultivation through storytelling. This feeling in Elder Li's heart became stronger and stronger. This is the map of the trial ground. It also marks the strength of the demonic beasts in each place. It will be useful for your training. Next, it was time for Elder Li to give Yang Chun some benefits. As he handed over the jade slip, he said, "Fortunately, you have a clear conscience. This old man's heart is also a lot more relaxed. If you didn't deal with it properly this time, the Sect Master and Hall Master Lu had already decided to take you down for interrogation." Elderly said it casually, as if he was talking about something trivial. Seeing that Yang Chun didn't seem to care, he thought he had something to rely on. He couldn't help but remind him, "Do you think you will be safe with the celestial devouring insect?" Just now, in the cave abode of Sect Master Wang and Elder Lu, there were at least 36 mysterious heaven sect supreme elders and 2 of the strongest god-trapping arrays in the sect. Not to mention 1 celestial devouring insect. Even if there were 100 more, they would only be annihilated under the heavenly Dipper killing array of 36 supreme elders. These words really shocked Yang Chun. He knew that the mysterious heaven sect was prepared, but he didn't expect Sect Master Wang and Hall Master Lu to directly bring 36 supreme mystic immortal experts. Fortunately, he didn't make a move. Otherwise, it would definitely be very miserable. Even if he could survive by relying on the yellow turbaned strongman body refining technique, the entire Chunyang Palace would definitely be destroyed. There was no other possibility. You know fear now? Elderly glanced at Yang Chun as a lesson to let him know the immensity of heaven and earth. Be careful in the future. Don't make a mistake.